Chapter 727. From this moment onwards, Zhao Feng had completely stepped into the level of a void god realm king. If he didn't purposely conceal his aura, his intent and true yuan would be able to connect with heaven and earth. This was equivalent to fusing with the world at all times. This was also why some void god realm kings were enveloped in the magnificent power of heaven and earth, and their every action was filled with power. Congratulations, Master. The skeletal division leader and the child demigod both congratulated. Both of them had a complicated look on their faces. The only difference was that the skeletal division leader's respect came from the bottom of its heart. It had personally witnessed Xiao Feng's miraculous growth. In the Azure Flower continent, void god realm kings were legendary existences that only existed in ancient legends. Even the Scarlet Moon patriarch of the past had only touched the void god realm. In other words, with Xiao Feng's current cultivation, he was an unrivaled sovereign in the Azure Flower continent, let alone his true strength. The child demigod was stunned by Xiao Feng's rapid growth, and he felt even more wary and pressure. Little Kuan Yun, your cultivation isn't far from the void god realm. Xiao Feng's gaze flashed past the child demigod. The child demigod relied on resources to recover his strength. If it weren't for the restriction of resources, the child demigod might have broken through to the void god realm even faster than Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng's gaze pressured the child demigod. At this moment, Zhao Feng's soul and true yuan were both stronger than the child demigod's. The only thing he was lacking was his intent. After all, the child demigod was a demigod before he went back to the past. Even if he hadn't fully recovered, his intent could still suppress emperors. Inside the captain's room, Zhao Feng closed his eyes and consolidated his cultivation. The child demigod returned to the ancient metal ring with a slightly depressed expression. It wasn't hard for him to find that Zhao Feng had used some top-tier resources to break through this time. Due to the lack of resources, the child demigod needed at least half a year to break through. Out of instinct and caution, Zhao Feng controlled the child demigod's cultivation to be on par with his. This was the only way he could control the other party while maximizing his usefulness. In the next few days, Zhao Feng went into seclusion to consolidate his cultivation. Although he had broken through with the help of external forces, his realm and soul had already reached virtual god level. After becoming a king, Zhao Feng's strength didn't skyrocket. After all, only the quantity of his true essence had greatly increased. The strength of his true essence had only improved slightly. This was within his expectations. However, Zhao Feng's strength and foundation had greatly increased. Zhao Feng was confident that with his current strength, he was invincible against anyone below the emperor realm. With his eye bloodline, he might even be able to challenge an emperor. If he were to encounter the Yin-Yang King again, Zhao Feng wouldn't be afraid even if it was a one-on-one battle. 10 days later, Zhao Feng's focus shifted to the absorption of the deity Tribulation Lightning and the Wind Lightning Inheritance. These were all things that could directly increase his strength. As long as Zhao Feng had free time, he wouldn't stop absorbing the deity Tribulation Lightning. Within the dimension of his left eye, the deity Tribulation Head floated silently and leaned against the edge of the purple soul sea. Zhao Feng used the soul version of the lightning transformation divine technique to absorb the power of the god Tribulation Head. Boom! The sound of 10,000 bolts of lightning boomed in his soul and radiated an immortal and undying aura of god Tribulation Lightning. Right now, Zhao Feng's soul intent had a strong resistance against the particles of God Tribulation Lightning. After absorbing a few wisps of God Tribulation Lightning, his soul was also cleansed. In the process of absorbing the God Tribulation Lightning, Zhao Feng's soul and intent would become stronger. The effect was unexpectedly good. As time passed, Zhao Feng would be able to absorb a wisp of God Tribulation Lightning every few days. On top of that, he used the 10,000 divine thoughts technique to multitask. Absorbing the God Tribulation Lightning to refine his soul intent was part of his daily cultivation. Zhao Feng's other intents focused on the Wind Lightning Inheritance and the Wings of Wind and Lightning. In the blink of an eye, 3 to 4 months had passed. Within the captain's room, the aura that Zhao Feng occasionally gave off became more and more terrifying. In the purple soul sea, Zhao Feng absorbed 70 to 80 wisps of God Tribulation lightning, which was 20 to 30 times more than when he was at the pirate's sacred land. A total of 78 wisps of God Tribulation lightning. 78 wisps of God Tribulation lightning appeared in Zhao Feng's purple soul sea. The divine tribulation lightning was shapeless and immaterial, and it possessed an eternal and domineering aura that looked down upon all things in the world. He observed closely. There were 78 ancient symbols of lightning in the purple soul sea. They gave off a faint dark light and were connected to each other like electric circuits. When Zhao Feng circulated the 10,000 divine thoughts technique, and his soul power affected 70 to 80 wisps of God Tribulation lightning. Some God Tribulation lightning particles flowed and refined his soul. At the same time, Zhao Feng started to comprehend the laws of the God Tribulation lightning and merged them into the crystal core in his dantian. The surging true yuan dimension within the crystal core started to contain the aura of God Tribulation lightning that countered all lightning. Unknowingly, Zhao Feng's comprehension of the Scarlet Destruction Wind lightning had almost reached 100% completion. The Scarlet Destruction Wind lightning was like a burning cloud, and it had a faint golden glow on its surface. After the Scarlet Destruction Wind lightning comes the Golden Wind lightning. But my power of wind lightning has already surpassed the Wind Lightning Emperor's expectations. Zhao Feng murmured in his heart. The aura of the ancient dream realm and the laws of the God Tribulation lightning had merged into his power, making it exceed the limits of normal lightning. Master! The child demigod's voice suddenly sounded. Zhao Feng opened his eyes and looked at the restless child next to him. It's like this, there are a few strong pirate forces nearby, and I want to take some resources from them. The child demigod said. Zhao Feng scanned the area with his divine sense and found that there were indeed a few pirate forces. Each of them had at least a half-step king. Master, I'll finish this quickly and won't delay the journey. The child demigod begged. Zhao Feng understood that the child demigod needed resources to recover his cultivation. Go. Zhao Feng waved his hand and didn't stop him. He hadn't provided any resources to the child demigod recently, but he couldn't stop him from obtaining resources. Whoosh! The ghost ship didn't slow down at all and continued to fly forward. The only difference was that the child demigod had left the ghost ship. Next, Zhao Feng witnessed a massacre. The pirates didn't even have the ability to fight back against the child demigod. Boom! The golden-skinned toddler, who was 3 or 4 years old, punched out and shattered the entire pirate ship. In just the time it took to make a cup of tea. The child demigod had destroyed several pirate forces all by himself, and Zhao Feng had no idea what was going on. Although the grade of these resources isn't high, it's better than nothing. The child demigod organized the spoils of war. Whoosh! Then, he turned into a ray of golden light and quickly caught up to the ghost ship. The entire process didn't waste any time at all. After this, Zhao Feng didn't stop the child demigod from doing this. However, he warned the child demigod not to be within 10,000 miles of him. In reality, Zhao Feng also lacked resources for his own cultivation. After breaking through to the Void God realm, the resources he needed were even more stringent. The lifespan of Void God realm kings was several thousand years, and every small breakthrough required a large amount of resources. On this day, Zhao Feng entered the ancient dream realm once more. Just like last time, Zhao Feng entered the forest. His target was the spiritual fruits on the tree in the depths of the forest. When Zhao Feng came this time, the number of spiritual fruits on the tree had decreased by a few more. There were more wounds on the python's body. It wasn't hard to guess that there were still some beasts and Yao spirits in the ancient dream realm. Zhao Feng opened his god's spiritual eye and inspected the surroundings. As expected, Zhao Feng saw the ancient Yao bird. There were some scars on its feathers, indicating that its injuries hadn't healed yet. If this continues, there will be fewer and fewer spiritual fruits on the tree. Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed as he started to think. He could kill 2 Yao spirits, which wasn't hard for the current Zhao Feng. However, 2/3 of the fruits on the tree were still green and far from ripening. Some of the green fruits didn't even reach 1/10 of their full potential. The one Zhao Feng had eaten last time was a 70% ripe spiritual fruit, but it didn't have the best effect. Soon, a thought appeared in Zhao Feng's mind. Fine, I'll choose you too. Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye scanned over the snake and ancient Yao bird. The 2 primordial demon spirits shivered inexplicably in their hearts. Zhao Feng's first target was the ancient Yao bird. This was because the ancient Yao bird was very agile and had a large range of vision. Zhao Feng was worried that the bird would sneak attack him while he was dealing with the snake. Seng. Zhao Feng silently leapt to the edge of the forest, his left eye still locked onto the ancient Yao bird. The ancient Yao bird's heart shook as it felt a sense of danger. It suddenly felt Zhao Feng's enmity and screeched as it leapt over. Scarlet Destruction Eye Flame. A scarlet-colored light flashed in Zhao Feng's left eye, and there was a hint of gold within it. Boom! The ancient Yao bird was caught off guard by a ball of half-transparent scarlet lightning before it even arrived. The Scarlet Destruction Eye Flame contained the essence of the Scarlet Destruction Wind Lightning and the intent of the God Tribulation Lightning. The ancient Yao bird's eyes were filled with stars. Just a single blow from the eye flame had severely burned the ancient demonic bird's soul. Its wings were covered in scorch marks. Dark Heart Seal. Zhao Feng took advantage of the moment the bird's mind was in pain and confusion to use a Forbidden Soul Eye bloodline technique. In the air, the ancient Yao bird struggled for a bit, then stopped resisting and obediently landed in front of Zhao Feng. Success. Zhao Feng smiled faintly. Next. He brought the ancient demon bird with him as he approached the green-spotted python near the towering tree. Sai. The green-spotted python couldn't help but reveal wariness as it saw Zhao Feng and the ancient bird approach. Go! Zhao Feng ordered the ancient Yao bird to go over and deal with the snake. From afar, he launched a sneak attack with a psychic spike to injure the python's mind and successfully cast the Dark Heart Seal. Just like that. The 2 rulers within the forest were successfully enslaved by Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng ordered the Yao bird and the snake to guard the tree and not let any living beings get close. 28 in total. Zhao Feng counted and found that there weren't many spiritual fruits left. 2/3 of them were unripe, and there were 7 or 8 that were half-ripe. Zhao Feng picked 2 of the spiritual fruits that were 80 to 90% ripe. Zhao Feng then started to search the ancient Yao bird's soul. He wanted to learn more about the ancient dream realm through this bird. Chapter 728. A while later. Zhao Feng withdrew the soul-searching art from his left eye and let out a breath. As he looked at this ancient land, his gaze became somewhat different. There wasn't much information about the ancient dream realm in the bird's memories. It seemed to be the lowest tier of beasts in the ancient dream realm, and it had only just reached this level. The ancient demon bird would only stay in this area for its entire life. The areas further away were even more dangerous. Some of the powerful auras made it not dare to get close. There were indeed some powerful beasts in the ancient dream realm. In the bird's memories, it had met a humanoid race 2 or 3 times. However, the auras of those races were so oppressive that the ancient demonic bird couldn't breathe, even though it was still far away. From the memories, Zhao Feng could feel how terrifying those races were. This ancient dream realm isn't simple. I need to be careful and not advance recklessly. Zhao Feng took a deep breath. At the same time, he was slightly confused. Why was he able to enter this dimension with his left eye? What was the relationship between the ancient dream realm and the owner of the god's spiritual eye? Of course. The most puzzling thing about the ancient dream realm was that Zhao Feng was in sync with this place. It was obvious that Zhao Feng didn't just enter with his consciousness. In the ancient dream realm, Zhao Feng's body was made of flesh and blood, so he could use weapons, including the ancient metal ring. However, Zhao Feng hadn't tried to bring other beings in yet, so he had to find out if it was possible. At the moment, Zhao Feng didn't want to reveal the secret of the ancient dream realm. "You guys stay here and guard this place." Before leaving, Zhao Feng gave them some instructions. Shua. In the real world, 2 fruits appeared in Zhao Feng's hands. Without hesitation, he ate a 90% ripe spiritual fruit first. The spiritual fruits in the ancient dream realm were many times more effective than the top spiritual fruits in the real world. However, after reaching the void god realm, one needed to accumulate a large amount of resources to increase their cultivation. Zhao Feng estimated that even if he ate all 28 fruits, he would only be able to push his cultivation to the intermediate empty god realm. And this was under the assumption of maximizing the effects of absorbing the spirit fruit. In the captain's cabin, Zhao Feng revolved his true essence and absorbed the primordial heaven and earth essence qi from the spirit fruit. In the true yuan space of the core, the scarlet true yuan surged violently. After absorbing the energy of the spirit fruit, it boiled like a burning scarlet sea. When one reached the virtual god realm, one's true vitality was almost inexhaustible under normal circumstances. However, in the process of reaching the void god realm, the expansion of his true yuan space and the improvement of his soul intent were still progressing. It would be a long road. Even if Zhao Feng could enter the ancient dream realm, he would only be able to shorten the entire path. 1 month later, Zhao Feng had absorbed 2 spiritual fruits, and his true vitality cultivation had been further consolidated. However, he was still far from reaching the middle stage of the empty god realm. Of course, within the soul sea, absorbing the power of God Tribulation Lightning was like a daily task. Using the power of God Tribulation Lightning to refine it, Zhao Feng's soul became stronger day by day and was slowly approaching the level of an emperor. Apart from that, Zhao Feng didn't stop studying the wings of wind and lightning. Lightning wings flying technique. Lightning wings wind flash. Wind lightning wings slash. A part of Zhao Feng's consciousness had been studying the lightning wings secret technique and the Death Spirit Lord. After the battle with the Pirate Emperor and the Death Spirit Lord, Zhao Feng had gained a lot of insight into the Lightning Wings secret technique. Zhao Feng's next goal was the highest level of the Lightning Wings Wind Flash, Lightning Wings Spatial Flash. In essence, Lightning Wings Spatial Flash was the combination of the Lightning Wings Wind Flash and the Lightning Wings Flying technique. Under the foundation of the extreme speed of the wind and thunder ultimacy, he used the Thunder Wings Escape Space secret skill to perform a magical leap across space. Once one comprehended the Lightning Wings Spatial Flash, one could travel 1,000 miles in an instant. However, in order to comprehend the Lightning Wings Spatial Flash, one had to be able to use the Lightning Wings Flying technique and the Lightning Wings Wind Flash well. Zhao Feng was trying to get closer to this goal. Time slowly passed by. Zhao Feng started cultivating on the ghost ship, and he didn't face the pursuit of the death god. This was within Zhao Feng's expectations. Firstly, the Emperor of Death's subordinates had all been killed by Zhao Feng. Secondly, Zhao Feng had destroyed the wisp of Eye of Death intent, making it hard to sense it. After becoming a king, Zhao Feng merged more God Tribulation Lightning into it, and his 10,000 Divine Thoughts technique was approaching the level of turning one thought into 1,000. Logically speaking, Zhao Feng should have been able to completely destroy the intent of the Eye of Death. However, Zhao Feng didn't do this. He purposely left behind the last wisp of Eye of Death intent and sealed it completely. Unless the Emperor of Death was right next to him, he wouldn't be able to sense it. Emperor of Death, I've been on the run for many years because of you. I'll definitely pay you back several times over. A thought appeared in Zhao Feng's heart. He had been chased for many years and lived on the border of life and death. If it was anyone else, they would have a hard time releasing their pent-up anger. 9 months after leaving the pirate's sacred land, when a new king's aura rose within the ghost ship. Void God Realm. I've finally reached it. The child demigod's body glowed with a golden light, as if he was a golden Buddha statue. Just the aura radiating from his sacred body made the late-stage Great Origin Core Realm Skeletal Division leader feel suffocated. This demigod Kun Yun's golden Kun sacred body has basically reached the 5th level. Zhao Feng woke up from seclusion. He also had the inheritance of the golden Kun sacred body and the even higher golden Kun sacred lightning body. Once the golden Kun sacred body reached the late stages of the 5th level, he would be unrivaled at the Void God Realm, and it wouldn't be hard for his body to fight against an emperor. His cultivation had broken through to the Void God Realm, and his golden Kun sacred body had basically reached the 5th level. Zhao Feng couldn't estimate the battle power of the child demigod. However, there was one thing he was sure of. The child demigod was definitely unrivaled against anyone below emperors, but whether or not he could fight against an emperor remained to be seen. Master, if we team up now, we don't need to be afraid of anyone as long as they aren't peak emperors. The child demigod's voice sounded. Indeed. Now that Zhao Feng and the child demigod had both broken through to the Void God Realm, they were basically unrivaled against anyone below emperors. If the two of them teamed up, they wouldn't need to be afraid of normal emperors. This isn't enough to deal with the Emperor of Death. Zhao Feng shook his head faintly. He wasn't arrogant. Void God Realm emperors were also split into different ranks. The difference between normal emperors and peak emperors was huge. Furthermore, the Emperor of Death was an unrivaled existence amongst emperors, and his battle power was probably close to a mystic light realm sacred lord. Master, I need resources right now. As long as I have enough resources, I can recover my strength even further. The child demigod said bitterly. He was a demigod and could revive from a drop of blood. As long as he had enough resources, he would be able to quickly recover his strength. Zhao Feng remained expressionless. He didn't want to give the child demigod any more resources from the ancient dream realm. He needed to limit the amount of resources he gave the child demigod. If he didn't do so, he might become even more of a threat than the Emperor of Death. I don't have enough resources right now. Zhao Feng shook his head and said. Meow meow. The little thieving cat popped its head out and waved its paws, as if it was also complaining. Master, the cursed ghost corpses have all reached the peak small origin core realm, but we need large amounts of resources to increase their strength. The skeletal division leader said bitterly. Within the ghost ship, a human, a child, a cat, and a skeleton fell into a weird atmosphere. In just one night, the ghost ship was facing a shortage of resources. Not only was it a shortage of resources, Zhao Feng didn't even have much primal crystal stones left. He still needed to leave some primal crystal stones to maintain the ship's flight. The source of this crisis was the Heaven's Legacy Race's city. However, even if Zhao Feng had a second choice, he would still do the same thing. Master, I have a suggestion. The child demigod's eyes flashed as he suddenly said. Suggestion? Don't tell me we're going to rob some island or two-star sect. Zhao Feng rolled his eyes. Judging from the current resource crisis, even if they looted a few one-star sects and wiped out dozens of pirate forces, it would be of no use. There was only one reason. Zhao Feng and the child demigod's level was too high, so normal resources were useless against them. Master, I just killed a pirate group and received some information. There are several two-star sects in the Red Dragon Island zone ahead, and they're fighting. The child demigod licked his lips and had an evil expression that seemed to say, you know what I mean. When this expression fell on the face of a young child, it was a little strange and added a bit of gloominess. Meow meow. The little thieving cat waved its paws in agreement. It had been so poor recently that it didn't even have food to eat. The skeletal division leader also had an excited and expectant expression. A two-star battlefield? Zhao Feng's heart shook. A battle between two-star sects would definitely be huge, and it would involve a lot of resources. If it was in the past, Zhao Feng definitely wouldn't be able to avoid a 2-star battlefield at all costs. But now, the enormous 2-star battlefield was a good place to take advantage of the situation. And, let me take a look at the map. With a thought, a screen of ice and water appeared in front of Zhao Feng. The outline of a nearby island zone appeared on the screen. The Red Dragon Island Zone that the child demigod mentioned was about 1/5 of the way to the island zone. Zhao Feng continued to look down the map. His gaze passed by another 5 or 6 island zones before Zhao Feng saw the Gone Sacred Island Zone. The Sky Sacred Qin Palace isn't far. Zhao Feng's heart moved. The Sky Sacred Qin Palace was in one of the Gone Sacred Island Zone zones. Before he reached the Sky Sacred Qin Palace, it was not a bad choice to get some resources and wealth. Let's go. Zhao Feng himself was impatient, but he didn't know if it was because of the Sky Sacred Qin Palace or because they were getting closer. So, the ghost ship sped up, and it seemed to become excited as it sped toward the Red Dragon Island Zone. At the same time, within the Red Dragon Island Zone, an island zone that was twice the size of the Azure Flower continent, rumble. Boom! Boom! Magnificent powers clashed in the sky, and heaven and earth seemed to shake. The mountains and rivers of the island zone started to crumble, and dust billowed. Below were some origin core realms. There was a total of 3 2-star sects that were fighting intensely. There were 4 or 5 Void God Realm kings involved in this battle. They didn't know that 4 uninvited guests were quickly approaching. Chapter 729. This 2-star battlefield was a resourceful island within the Red Dragon Island Zone. In terms of population and resources, this island was twice as big as the Azure Flower continent. The leaders of this war were 3 2-star sects and 18 1-star sects that were involved in it. The Red Dragon Island Zone was similar to the Tianlu Island Zone. One of the 3 2-star sects was a 2.5-star sect called the Sky Star Demonic Sect, and it was fighting against the other 2 2-star sections. At this moment, in the air above the battlefield, the Sky Star Demonic Sect had 2 Void God Realm kings. One of them was a majestic male wearing a black gold robe. A dark star symbol flashed on his forehead, and he was surrounded by a black force field. The black golden-robed male fought against 2 Void God realms by himself, and he was still able to do it easily. This Sky Star Demonic Lord's cultivation has already reached the late-stage God Void realm. His strength isn't far from the peak-tier king level. The 2 kings were a white-haired elder and a woman in white, and they were in a tough battle. The Sky Star Demonic Lord was the sovereign of the Sky Star Demonic Sect, and he was one of the strongest Void God Realm experts in the Red Dragon Island Zone. Demonic Star Domain. The Sky Star Demonic Lord waved his sleeves, and the sky was covered by a domain of darkness. Boom! Whoosh! Dark stars appeared in the space domain, shooting out beams of demonic starlight that suppressed the white-haired old man and the white-robed woman. Apart from that, in the sky of the realm, another beautiful woman from the Heavenly Star Demonic Sect was surrounded by a pitch-black aura. A vast demonic power pressed down on a king of the Sword Dao. Sky Flowing Sword King. The female from the Sky Demonic Sect smiled. My serene force field specializes in borrowing power. Even if your attack is 30% stronger, you won't be able to do anything. In half a day, you won't be able to keep up. Perhaps it won't be that long before the sect master finishes the battle. Then let's try. The king of the Sword Dao didn't move, and his sword intent was as firm as a rock. Beams of cold sword light pierced through the sky. Whoosh! The female's serene force field started to become unstable, and her expression couldn't help but change. So, the Sky-Flowing Sword King was the #1 expert in the Tao of the Sword in the Red Dragon Island Zone, and he was the only sword cultivator to become a king. Boom boom boom, the battle between the Origin Core realms caused mountains to crumble and the earth to crack. Gales of wind blew everywhere, and dust blew everywhere. In normal islands, those at the Origin Core realm were invincible sovereigns. However, the clash of several kings in the air caused the sovereigns' hearts to jump, and they didn't dare to get close. At the same time, the sound of something tearing through the air came from the void sea. Whoosh! A ghost ship entered the edge of the two-star battlefield. At the edge of the outer realm, there were also supremacies fighting, as well as ships transporting resources. Who are you? The arrival of the Ghost Corps ship attracted the attention of one of the two-star sections. Meow, meow. On the Ghost Corps ship, a silver-gray kitten stuck a large skull flag on it. Pirate ship. The experts who were fighting in this area had strange expressions on their faces. Ordinary pirate forces would run as far as they could when they saw a two-star sect. Most experts wouldn't even be able to escape when they saw a two-star battlefield. However, what happened today had broken their mindset. Not only did the ghost pirate ship not go around the two-star battlefield, it even charged in excitedly. Stop that pirate ship! A great Origin Core Realm Sovereign Lord led a group of several dozen people, the weakest of whom was at the late-stage True Lord rank, and charged toward the pirate ship. When a thick layer of Ghost Corps flame cloud suddenly appeared on the Ghost Corps sea ship. 100 pairs of blood-red and ferocious eyes appeared inside the Ghost Corps sea ship, bursting with astonishing resentment power. Arg! The experts at the Origin Core Realm all collapsed before they even got close. Some even had their souls destroyed. The Ghost Corps's ship sailed straight in. This group of people was instantly turned into a puddle of blood, and their essence was absorbed by the Ghost Corps' cursed array. Meow meow. The little thieving cat and the golden-skinned child flew through the air and harvested the spoils of war. Of course. The little thieving cat and the child demigod would only take the spoils of war from Origin Core realms. Within the captain's room, Zhao Feng sat there casually and took a sip of the celestial wine from the demigod's cellar. Everyone, hand over your interspatial items and I'll let you live. The child demigod roared. Meow meow. The little thieving cat waved the skull flag and cheered. The two little fellows floated in a vacuum above the Ghost Corps flame cloud, so the Ghost Corps' cursed array didn't affect them. How dare you! A measly pirate ship dares to rob the Sky Star demonic sect. A group from the demonic sect charged over. The ones leading them were two great Origin Core Realm sovereign lords, and there were 7 or 8 normal sovereigns. Such a force could easily destroy several one-star sections. However, the 100 pairs of scarlet eyes in the Ghost Corps flame cloud caused the hearts of the devil sex experts to shatter and their souls to scatter. They still couldn't fight back. This group of people became fertilizer for the Ghost Corps' cursed array. Zhe, this 2-star battlefield is indeed a good place to feed. The skeletal division leader laughed coldly and said. Then, wherever the ghost ship passed, the experts from 1 and 2-star sects were scared out of their wits. However, the ghost ship was extremely fast, and the Origin Core Realm experts couldn't dodge it at all. Hand over your interspatial items and I'll let you live. The child demigod roared. My lord, we'll hand them over. Several sovereigns at the Origin Core Realm were scared out of their wits and knelt on the ground, handing over their interspatial items and treasures. The child demigod and the little thieving cat had sharp eyes, so these experts couldn't hide anything at all. In the end, the sovereigns that handed over their interspatial items all escaped. There were also some who resisted, but without exception, they all became fertilizer for the Ghost Corps' cursed array. At this moment in time a small commotion broke out in the battlefield. Wherever the Ghost Corps ship passed, there would be chaos, and everyone would be in danger. Luckily, the ghost ship's goal was to steal and not to kill. As long as one handed over their interspatial items, they would be able to survive. At the start, the ghost ship only roamed around the outer edges of the battlefield. After roaming around the outer edges, the ghost ship headed toward the center of the battlefield. Where did this pirate ship come from? How dare it! The expressions of the Void God Realm Kings fighting in the sky became grim. Only to see, the ghost ship didn't differentiate between factions, righteous, or demonic. The Void God Realm Kings originally thought that the pirate ship was just striking while the iron was hot, and that it was trying to take advantage of the situation. However, from the looks of it, after roaming around the outer edges, the ghost ship headed toward the center, as if it wanted to rob the entire 2-star battlefield. Which bandits are you from? Hurry up and capture them. At the center of the battlefield, a half-step Void God Realm and several sovereign lords charged over. These experts came from different sections. It was obvious that the actions of the ghost ship had angered everyone, and the righteous and demonic forces had teamed up to deal with them. Leave behind your interspatial items and I'll let you live. The child demigod had a cold expression. A brat whose hair hasn't even grown out yet. The leading half-step king laughed instead of getting angry as his half-step king intent pierced through the sky. Hu shua. A thick cloud of ghost corpse flames turned into a tornado that engulfed the group of people in the blink of an eye. Arg! Amidst miserable shrieks, the entire group, including the half-step king, was turned into nourishment. This scene caused the entire battlefield to change. The center of the 2-star battlefield was filled with fear and chaos. The ghost ship used its unrivaled momentum to steal from many experts. Some Origin Core Realm experts obediently handed over all their wealth in exchange for their lives. With this example, many experts followed suit. Meow meow. The little thieving cat smiled and kept collecting the spoils of war. Of course, a small number of experts tried to kill the little thieving cat, but all of them were instantly killed. Among them were one half-step king and 2 peak supremacies. After killing the chicken to warn the monkeys, the remaining experts shuddered and sucked in a breath of cold air. In the sky, the Void God Realm Kings finally stopped fighting. What's the background of this pirate ship? The Void God Realm Kings on the 2-star battlefield looked at each other, and their expressions became solemn. On the ghost ship, there was a youth, a child, a cat, and a skeleton. This combination was hard to see through. However, it was this weird combination that managed to dominate the 2-star battlefield. No matter what, we have to leave this pirate ship behind. The dark star symbol on the sky star demonic lord's forehead started to twitch and flash. If this pirate ship was allowed to escape unscathed, it would be a huge humiliation for the entire Red Dragon Island zone. The 5 Void God Realm Kings came to an agreement and sent the Sky-Flowing Sword King and the female from the demonic sect to deal with the pirate ship. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 2 Void God Realm Kings descended from the sky, and their magnificent power caused the Heaven-Earth Yuan Chi nearby to freeze. Zhe, more spoils of war. The child demigod was overjoyed instead of surprised. Seeing the 2 kings arrive, the child demigod's body glowed with a golden light, and a terrifying surge of magnificent power appeared in the air. Only now did the child demigod reveal his king cultivation. Boom! The figures of the Sky-Flowing Sword King and the female from the demonic sect shook as if they were being crushed by a mountain. The 2 kings harumphed and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Not good. Go and save them. The expressions of the Sky Star Demonic Lord and company changed dramatically. The strength that the child demigod displayed was comparable to a peak-tier king. The Sky-Flowing Sword King and the female from the demonic sect weren't his match. Even the Sky Star Demonic Lord didn't have the battle power of a peak-tier king. Pang! Boom! A heaven-shaking rumble came from the void below, and the mountains and rivers within 1,000 miles collapsed inch by inch. Kneel! The child demigod's small body released a dominating physical force as 2 golden hands pressed the Sky-Flowing Sword King and the female from the demonic sect onto the ground. Wah! The 2 kings spat out a mouthful of blood, and their faces went white. Meow meow! The little thieving cat flew over and took the interspatial items of the 2 kings. The female from the demonic sect's eyes were filled with coldness as the Sky-Flowing Sword King's sword hummed and tried to counterattack. The child demigod snickered coldly. Boom! Boom! The two hands pressed down and crushed the two kings into a puddle of blood, which was then engulfed by the ghost corpse flames. The child demigod's golden Kuan sacred body had just reached the 5th level, and he could sweep across void god realm kings with just his physical force alone. If he reached the late stages of the 5th level, his sacred body could even fight against emperors. Chapter 730. The child demigod's killing intent made the bodies of the Sky Star demonic lord and company go cold. In just an instant, 2 normal void god realm kings were killed by the child demigod. Hand over your interspatial items and I'll let you live. The child demigod licked his lips and looked at the 3 kings that were about to arrive. At this moment, the entire battlefield was deathly silent. The terrifying strength of the 3-4-year-old child made the hearts of the experts from the 1-star and 2-star sects jump. Even 2 kings had been easily killed by him, let alone those below the void god realm. Who are you? The Sky Star demonic lord's expression was grim, and his eyes were cold as the dark symbol on his forehead started to flicker. The sovereign of the demonic Tao in the Red Dragon Island zone was famed throughout the heavens and earth. Of the remaining 3 kings, only his strength was close to a peak-tier king. If the Sky Star demonic lord teamed up with the other 2 kings of the righteous Tao, they could definitely fight against a peak-tier king and even win. I don't want to repeat myself. The child demigod's expression became cold as he used his sacred body and demigod intent to seal the air. Both sides were in a stalemate. The Sky Star demonic lord, the white-haired elder, and the woman in white didn't dare to make any rash moves. This was because the only one from the ghost ship's side was the child demigod. There was also a mysterious youth within the pirate ship who was also immeasurably strong. That youth disappeared. The divine senses of the 3 void god realm kings locked down this area and caught a slight disturbance in space. Lightning wings flying technique. Schwa. A pair of 200 feet long crimson lightning wings that looked like burning wings surrounded by lightning appeared above the heads of the heavenly star demon master and the others. The 3 kings instantly felt a surge of lightning fire destruction sweep over, and they felt like they were suffocating. Boom. With the wings of wind and lightning as the center, a storm of destruction enveloped the 3 kings, forcing them to circulate their magnificent power to defend. Master. The child demigod let out a breath. He had a chance of winning against the Sky Star demonic lord and company alone. However, if the 3 of them ran in different directions, it would be hard for him to kill them all. Right now, if Zhao Feng used the lightning wings flying art to appear behind the 3 kings and form a pincer attack, then the Celestial Star demonic lord and company would have no chance of survival. The child demigod knew how fast Zhao Feng was. Master. The heavenly star demonic lord and the other 2 paled in shock. They felt a chill spread from the soles of their feet to their entire bodies. This little child had the battle power of a peak-tier king. Then, what kind of existence would his master be? Both of you, stop. The white-haired old man and the white-robed beauty were quite frightened, and they hurriedly called out. If they really fought, with the heavenly star demon lord's strength, he might be able to escape. The 2 of them were only normal kings, so their chances of escaping were less than 5%. These 2 are at least peak-tier king tiers. The heavenly star demon lord lost his will to fight. The demon star true power in his body secretly revolved, preparing to escape. As the number 1 expert of the demonic Tao in the Red Dragon Island zone, the Sky Star demonic lord's wealth far surpassed that of normal kings. He was not willing to be robbed by others. However, he had only just started preparing his escape technique when the youth with lightning wings behind him attacked. Stay here. The scarlet destruction lightning wings on Zhao Feng's back grew by a couple dozen yards, and they seemed to cover the sky. The magnificent power from his king intent increased. Pang! Zhao Feng just punched out, and the air turned into a dimension of ice. Everything was frozen. Not good. Ice sealing domain. The Sky Star demonic lord and company entered a dimension of ice. Their bodies froze, and a layer of ice formed on them, causing their speed to decrease dramatically. Not only that. Within that punch, a misty labyrinth world appeared vaguely, shrouding his body and mind. What? Soul Dao Domain. Double Domain. The hearts of the Sky Star Demonic Lord and company panicked, and they couldn't fight back at all. Mystic Ice Domain. Maze Domain. Double Domain. The Mystic Ice Domain came from Zhao Feng's Mystic Ice Scaled Race bloodline. In other words, Zhao Feng's simple punch contained two spatial domains. One was a Soul Dao Domain, and the other was a physical Mystic Ice Domain. The Mystic Ice Domain's effect was to freeze everything. All living beings within the Profound Ice Space Domain would be enveloped by the Profound Ice's cold energy and be frozen solid. When the two spatial domains were stacked together, the power was immeasurable. Peng! The Sky Star Demonic Lord was sent flying by the punch, and a layer of ice formed on his body. He was already heavily injured. Under the stacking of the two domains, he couldn't fight back at all, and his mind and body were both injured. When Zhao Feng's illusion maze domain merged into an attack, it could not only cause mental confusion, but it also had a certain impact on the soul. "Milord, stop. We're at your disposal." The white-haired old man and the beauty in white couldn't get out of the two spatial domains, and they couldn't even touch Zhao Feng's figure. The stacking of the two domains caused the three to be in a world of ice and snow. The Sky Star Demonic Lord was lying next to a wall of ice and was trying his best to dissolve the power of ice. His face was filled with fear. Even if he could resist the Mystic Ice Domain, he wouldn't be able to escape from the Illusion Maze Domain in a short amount of time. Shwa! Shwa! The white-haired old man and the beauty in white disappeared from the Sky Star Demonic Lord's sight after surrendering. Damn it! The Sky Star Demonic Lord gritted his teeth. These two kings of the righteous path had surrendered so easily. Only the Sky Star Demonic Lord was left in the middle of the two spatial domains, and he was unwilling to give up. He had several important treasures in his hands, so how could he be willing to give up just like that? Meow meow. The white-haired old man and the beauty in white were plundered by the little thieving cat. These two Void God Realm kings were the true leaders of two-star sects, and they had a lot of wealth. Also, all the Origin Core Realm experts, hand over your spoils of war. The child demigod crossed his arms and looked down at the battlefield. There were still many Origin Core realms that hadn't been plundered. The white-haired old man and the beauty in white had helpless expressions. The battlefield of a two-star sect was being plundered by a four-man pirate ship. Right at this moment, the demonic star sect master, who was trapped in the middle of two spatial domains, suddenly screamed and fell from the sky. So, Zhao Feng circulated his eye intent and used a mental energy spike. The overwhelming advantage in the soul dimension almost made the demonic star sect master faint. Zhao Feng clapped his hands and told the little thieving cat and the child demigod to clean up the mess. My soul has been heavily injured. Even if my Yuan soul manages to escape, I'll still be dead. The demonic star sect master had a helpless expression. He, the sect master of a 2.5-star demonic sect, had fallen to such a state. I admit defeat. The demonic star sect master raised his hands and used his divine sense to tell the experts of the demonic sect to surrender. Now that the kings of both sides had been captured, the battle below quickly died down. Next, the vast two-star battlefield was plundered like never before. 3 two-star sects and many one-star sects were plundered by a single pirate ship. If this was spread, it would be shocking. It took an entire half a day for Zhao Feng's group of 4 to finish plundering the experts of the two-star battleground. Meow meow. The little thieving cat had a satisfied expression as it started to clear out the mountain of spoils of war. Zhao Feng's ancient metal ring started to fill up once more. The child demigod's eyes were filled with excitement and heat. On the other hand, the upper echelon of the 3 two-star sects and the 1-star sects all seemed to have been raped. Her face was empty, bitter, and powerless, like a young wife who had just lost her temper. "All right, thank you all for your hospitality. We won't be staying here any longer." After organizing the spoils of war, Zhao Feng's group of 4 entered the ghost ship. Whoosh! The experts watched as the ghost ship flew through the air. The experts on the 2-star battlefield heaved a sigh of relief after the ghost ship disappeared from their sight. However, the experts were enraged and cursed at the same time. Some of them even burst into tears. "Arg! My sky cloud mother stone. My 10,000-year wood ginseng and several hundred years of savings." On the 2-star battlefield, many high-end experts went berserk on the spot, going crazy. However, no one dared to chase after the ghost ship. The 100-year war between clans in the Red Dragon Island zone came to an end. The essence of a war between clans was to redistribute resources. But now, the experts on the battlefield were all broke. How could they still have the mood to fight? Of course. This was good news for the middle and low-level cultivators, and even the common people at the bottom of the hierarchy. After several thousand years, there hadn't been another large-scale war between clans in the Red Dragon Island zone. The 1-star and 2-star sects all started to rest. After this battle, most of the resources in the Red Dragon Island zone had been taken. One had to know that 90% of the resources were in the hands of a small number of experts. Ha ha ha. The laughter of Zhao Feng and company could be heard as the ghost ship entered the dimension. Within the ship, Zhao Feng's group of 4 started to split the spoils. Being the captain of the pirates, Zhao Feng obviously had the right to split the spoils. The little thieving cat and little Kuan Yun each took 20% of the spoils. The skeletal division leader took 10%. Even if it was just 10% of the resources, it was still a huge amount, enough to buy a few 1-star sections. As the captain, Zhao Feng took half of the spoils. Zhe, looting a 2-star battlefield is so big. No wonder pirates are everywhere in the limitless ocean. Our plundering has even brought peace to this region, bringing endless blessings and blessings, the group of 4 started to discuss shamelessly. They didn't know that normal pirate forces wouldn't dare to offend 2-star sects unless they were the pirate kings of the pirates' sacred land. Little Kuan Yun even suggested to do a few more. Don't be too high profile. There's always someone stronger. Back then, the pirate emperor had unparalleled battle power and was extremely high profile, but he was killed by a mystic light realm sacred lord. The wind lightning emperor's speed was unparalleled, but he was still killed by sacred lord Purple Knight. Zhao Feng shook his head. He wasn't blinded by the short-term benefits. He wasn't arrogant enough to think that he was stronger than the pirate emperor and the wind lightning emperor at their peak. Within the limitless ocean, the ghost ship flew at high speed and got closer and closer to its destination. There's only 2 or 3 more months before we reach the Sky Sacred Qin Palace. Chapter 731. There are still 2 to 3 months before we reach the Heavenly Saint Zither Palace, Zhao Feng murmured. Seeing that his destination was getting closer and closer, his heart was filled with apprehension, worry, and eagerness. In his mind, the elegant and beautiful figure, who was like a fairy in a painting, was dressed in a snow-white veil and had an ethereal and tranquil pretty face. Amidst a mixture of resentment and joy, she looked back and smiled at him. 7 years, he took a deep breath and felt a rare sense of nervousness. Looking back 7 years ago, the 17-year-old youth had become famous in the sacred True Dragon gathering. Unknowingly, so much time had passed. 7 years was enough for many things to happen. Putting aside Lu Qinxin's slim chance of survival, even if she was still alive, there would be too many variables in 7 years. If she was still alive, would Lu Qinxin remember her promise? She's in a foreign land, like a rootless duckweed. Could it be that she's already married? 7 years. If Lu Qinxin didn't die and didn't return, her fate would change unpredictably. Whoosh! Zhao Feng heaved a sigh of relief and calmed himself down. Whether he lived or died, he wanted a definite answer. This wasn't just his personal wish, but also the wish of his father, the flooding Lake City Lord. Void Mist Sea. The ghost ship maintained its high speed as it traveled through the void. In the Void Sea, the yuan qi was thin, the pressure of the world was low, and the air resistance was extremely low. Flying speed was 10 times faster than in the Void Sea. Even so, it would take at least 2 to 3 months for the ghost ship to reach the island zone where the sky's sacred Qin Palace was. Inside the ship, Zhao Feng's group of 4 was counting the spoils of war that they had obtained not long ago. Zhao Feng alone took 40% of the spoils from the 2-star battlefield. Among them, the Heavenly Star Demon Lord had quite a bit of wealth on him. He had 7 or 8 peak-grade Earth-ranked divine weapons, as well as some rare inheritance treasures. 7-star Soul Condensing Grass. 1000-year Earth King Ginseng. Cloud Abyss True Fruit. Zhao Feng discovered that several of the precious resources were beneficial to his cultivation and could help consolidate it. The 7-star Soul Condensing Grass could strengthen and condense the soul, as well as promote the transformation of the soul. The soul grass was a treasure that could heal the soul. No wonder the 7-star Demon King was so unwilling. Duanling Tian thought to himself. Zhao Feng's lips curled up into a smile. The Skystar Demonic Lord was the oldest king of the Red Dragon Island Zone, the strongest demonic cultivator. It wasn't hard for Zhao Feng to analyze. These 3 peak treasures were the foundation for a 7-star demonic lord to break through to the peak of the Void God realm. The other 2 top treasures, the 10,000-year Earth King Ginseng and the Cloud Abyss True Fruit, could greatly increase one's true essence and cultivation. The virtual God realm was mainly a transformation of the soul level. However, the crystal core in the body would also develop a true vitality space under the Grand Might Intent realm. Furthermore, ordinary space domains used the true Yuan space as their source of power. Since Zhao Feng had just reached Void God realm, the quintessential essence in his crystal core was surging. But this was just the beginning. When one's cultivation reached the peak of the King realm, the true Yuan space within the crystal core would become a vast true Yuan sea. In reality, the Sky Star Demonic Lord also had a Blood Demon King Pearl, which could strengthen one's body and blood. It was very beneficial for those who cultivated the demonic Tao. However, the child demigod had begged him to take it. Zhao Feng didn't cultivate the demonic Tao, so he didn't make things difficult for him. 3 months later, Zhao Feng's group of 4 began to wantonly consume the precious resources they had plundered to increase their strength. However, there were only a few treasures that were useful to Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng used the 10,000-year Earth King Ginseng, the 7-star Soul Condensing Grass, and the Cloud Abyss True Fruit. These were all treasures that the Sky Star Demonic Lord needed to create a foundation for him to break through to the Void God realm in the future. However, Zhao Feng only used 1.5 months to use all 3 of them. On average, he used one every half a month. The 7-star Soul Condensing Grass allowed Zhao Feng's soul to become slightly stronger. Even if it was just a bit, it wasn't easy for Zhao Feng. After all, his soul was constantly being strengthened by the God Tribulation Lightning, the 10,000 Divine Thoughts technique, and the Ancient Dream Realm. The strength of Zhao Feng's soul wasn't much different from an emperor's. Now that he had used the 7-star Soul Condensing Grass, his soul had become even stronger, and it was on the same level as an emperor. The 10,000-year Earth King Ginseng and the Cloud Abyss True Fruit had greatly expanded Zhao Feng's true Yuan dimension. If it wasn't for the fact that Zhao Feng had only just reached the Void God realm, these 2 treasures would have allowed him to break through to the middle stages of the Void God realm in just a couple months. However, because Zhao Feng didn't have enough foundation, he couldn't use these 2 treasures to break through to the middle stages of the Void God realm. However, even then, after using the 10,000-year Earth King Ginseng and the Cloud Abyss True Fruit, Zhao Feng's cultivation wasn't any weaker than some early-stage Void God realm experts. He wasn't far from the middle stages of the Void God realm. I still have some spiritual fruits from the Ancient Dream realm. I should be able to break through to the middle stages of the Void God realm within half a year. Zhao Feng wasn't worried. His focus was still to absorb the deity Tribulation Lightning's power and comprehend its profundities to raise the level of his cultivation technique inheritance. Techniques could increase Zhao Feng's battle power in a short amount of time. Absorbing the power of the God Tribulation Lightning in his Purple Soul Sea was still a daily task. Right now, Zhao Feng had absorbed 100 wisps of God Tribulation Lightning in his Soul Sea. Even if it was just a tiny wisp, it couldn't be underestimated after gathering 100 wisps. Zhao Feng's Soul-type I bloodline techniques contained the power of the God Tribulation Lightning. Even the core of the Scarlet Destruction Wind Lightning contained a wisp of the power of the God Tribulation Lightning. Since the power of the God Tribulation Lightning was imprinted in his soul, it was 100 times easier to comprehend it. Zhao Feng's Scarlet Destruction Wind Lightning started to shine with a scarlet gold light. His Wind Lightning inheritance wasn't just a pure golden wind lightning anymore. The Scarlet Gold Wind Lightning should be the next level of Zhao Feng's Wind Lightning inheritance. It might even be the highest level. Back then, the Wind Lightning Emperor's Wind Lightning inheritance could reach the Golden and Dark Golden Wind Lightning. The Dark Golden Wind Lightning was the pinnacle of the Golden Wind Lightning. Zhao Feng's Scarlet Destruction Wind Lightning started to surpass the Wind Lightning inheritance. This was because Zhao Feng was able to stabilize the Scarlet Destruction Wind Lightning after merging with the aura of the Ancient Dream Realm. He could even grasp some of the origin intents. That was why Zhao Feng raised the Scarlet Destruction Wind Lightning to a higher level and pursued the strongest explosiveness. Once I complete the evolution of the Scarlet Gold Wind Lightning, its power will surpass the Wind Lightning Emperor's Golden Wind Lightning. Zhao Feng confirmed his direction. The difference between him and the Wind Lightning Emperor was cultivation and foundation. If Zhao Feng had the same cultivation as the Wind Lightning Emperor, he wouldn't have to be afraid of the Emperor of Death. Within the ghost ship, after obtaining a large amount of resources, the child demigod, the little thieving cat, and the skeletal division leader were all improving. Only a small portion of the resources from the two-star battlefield were useful to Zhao Feng and the child demigod. The rest of the resources were given to the skeletal division leader to strengthen the ghost corpse cursed array. The strength of the cursed corpses were all reaching the great origin core realm. Zhao Feng would occasionally enter the ancient dream realm to kill large beasts and use their flesh to feed the cursed corpses. The cursed corpses all had the 10,000 withering ghost bone bloodline, and they had absorbed the flesh from the ancient dream realm. Zhao Feng analyzed that the limit of these ghost corpses was at least a half-step king. If they could devour enough King Yuan souls, there was a small chance that they could break through to the king realm. Back in the Heaven's Legacy ancient city, Zhao Feng and the cursed corpses both contained the ancient dream realm bloodline, which greatly reduced the cost of strengthening their bloodlines. He suspected that this was related to the ancient dream realm. Time flew by. The ghost corpse's ship traveled through the void mist sea, passing by many inner islands. The sky-sacred Qin Palace was getting closer and closer. One more month. On a certain day, Zhao Feng suddenly opened his eyes. The skeletal division leader's cultivation had reached the peak Great Origin Core realm, and it wasn't far from the half-step king realm. The change in its aura caught the attention of Zhao Feng and the child demigod. The two didn't put it to heart and continued to cultivate. Zhao Feng used all kinds of methods to increase his strength. The child demigod was the same, recovering his strength as much as possible and comprehending the secret techniques from his previous life. There was only 1 month left. Zhao Feng's focus was on forming the Wind Lightning spatial domain and comprehending the Lightning Wing spatial flash. Zhao Feng slowly grasped the basics of the Lightning Wing spatial flash, and his flying speed increased dramatically. As for the Wind Lightning domain, Zhao Feng already had an outline of it in the 18 Corners Pirate Sacred Land. However, the reality was that Zhao Feng's Mystic Ice domain was completed first. The Mystic Ice domain was a domain that came with the bloodline of the Mystic Ice scaled race, and it could be formed as long as one comprehended the bloodline inheritance. Zhao Feng felt that the mystic ice domain was more effective, so he formed it first. In the past, there was some resistance when he was forming the wind lightning domain. Now, Zhao Feng had broken through to the void god realm, and he had opened up a dimension of true yuan in his crystal core. There was no resistance when he formed the wind lightning domain. It wasn't smooth when I formed the wind lightning domain before because my cultivation wasn't at the void god realm, so I didn't have a dimension of true yuan. Zhao Feng understood. Next, Xiaoqin took a step forward in forming the wind lightning domain's outline. There was no difficulty at all. Half a month later, Zhao Feng's wind lightning domain was finally formed. The wind lightning domain used the wind lightning inheritance as the core and the true yuan dimension as the source. If Zhao Feng decided to cultivate another technique in the future, the wind lightning inheritance would disappear. When whoosh! The space around the Ghost Corp's ship was surrounded by thousands of lightning bolts and storms, forming a space domain that was hundreds of kilometers in circumference. Astonishing lightning storms were being nurtured within it. Zhao Feng used this spatial domain as an offensive domain. As long as he punched out, the wind lightning domain would condense to a point, and its power would more than double. Wind lightning domain. This Zhao Feng has already formed a third spatial domain. Waves appeared in the child demigod's heart. That's right. At this point, Zhao Feng had already completed 3 domains. Tao of the Soul, Illusion Maze Domain. Bloodline, Mystic Ice Domain. Cultivation Technique, Wind Lightning Domain. It was unimaginable for an early-stage Void God Realm King to have 3 spatial domains. Of course, out of these 3 spatial domains, the first 2 were basically innate abilities. Only the Wind Lightning domain was formed after Zhao Feng spent a lot of effort. I wonder what kind of power the 3 spatial domains will have. Zhao Feng couldn't help but feel excited and expectant. Half a month later, the ghost ship finally arrived at the Gone Sacred Island zone. According to the map, the Sky Sacred Qin Palace was within this zone. Chapter 732. Master, we've entered the Gone Sacred Island zone. We'll reach the Sky Sacred Qin Palace soon. The skeletal division leader reported from the ghost ship. It was slightly puzzled. What was Zhao Feng's goal in coming to the Sky Sacred Qin Palace? Zhao Feng had always kept this a secret. Zhao Feng waved his hand, and an ice blue screen appeared in front of him, displaying the map of this island zone. The Gone Sacred Island zone was extremely big, and there were many islands. It was twice the size of the Tianlu Islands zone and the Azure Islands zone. There were many forces here, and there were many inheritances of the Tao of Entertainment. According to the information from 10,000 years ago, there are 5 or 6 2-star sects here. The Heavenly Sacred Qin Palace is a peak 2-star Tao of Entertainment sect. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled as he thought. A peak 2-star sect that cultivated the Tao of Entertainment was indeed unusual. It could be said that this was the origin of the Tao of Entertainment in the Tsang Ocean. The Sky Sacred Qin Palace was the #1 sect in the Tao of Entertainment 10,000 years ago. According to the information on the map, the Sky Sacred Qin Palace was located in the center of the Sky Sacred Qin Zone. It was the most prosperous island zone in the island zone. Of course. All the information that Zhao Feng knew was given to him by the Purple Knight Sacred Lord from 10,000 years ago. He couldn't be sure if the Sky Sacred Qin Palace was still in the Sky Sacred Qin Zone or not. Several days later, an island filled with Yuan Qi appeared in front of him. It was surrounded by a layer of blue, red, and purple light. Looking from the outside, the island was like a zither, and one could faintly see the mountains and rivers within. The aura this island gave Zhao Feng was extremely peaceful. It was as if there were birds singing, flowers fragrant, music, books, and books. It wasn't like other islands that were filled with killing and chaotic auras, such as the Azure Flower Continent. That's right, it should be here. Zhao Feng nodded his head faintly. This aura should come from the origin of the Tao of Entertainment. It was different from normal sections. So, the ghost ship left behind a dark arc of lightning as it charged into the inner space. In the process of entering the outer realm, the surface of the ship lit up with brilliant sparks. There was an invisible force field on the surface of any island region. It was almost impossible for those at the bottom of the island to break through to the outside world. The minimum requirement was the true Lord rank. Therefore, those who could travel the outer domain void sea were all peak experts of the various zones. Most of them were at the true spirit realm or above, with the primal core realm being more common. After entering the domain space, the speed of the ghost ship decreased sharply. The pressure of heaven and earth, air resistance, and other factors were different from the outer realms. The territory of the Sky Zither region was 2 to 3 times that of the Azure Flower region. Zhao Feng did not have a map of the island region, and he still needed to inquire about the location of the Heavenly Sacred Qin Palace. Furthermore, most humans didn't know the location of the Sky Sacred Qin Palace. For example, when Zhao Feng was in the Zhao clan, he had no idea about the world of sections. Even after joining the Broken Moon clan, he still didn't know where the 10 great clans were. This was the limitation brought about by one's level. It's best to find a cultivator above the true spirit realm and ask him. Zhao Feng made up his mind. He spread his divine sense and headed in the direction of the auras of experts. Neither Zhao Feng nor the ghost ship had the same speed as they did in the limitless ocean. Half a day later, after passing through several rivers and forests, the disturbance of Yuan Qi ahead became stronger. Zhao Feng's divine sense landed on an island in the middle of a lake. There were many human auras on the island, and many of them had reached the true spirit realm or even the origin core realm. Furthermore, Zhao Feng also saw many cultivators that cultivated the Tao of entertainment. He had found the right place. Zhao Feng revealed a joyful expression as he flew in that direction. The ghost ship was somewhat eye-catching. Zhao Feng told the skeletal division leader to return to the 10,000 ghost pearl and put away the ship. Whoosh! Zhao Feng turned into a streak of lightning as he approached the island in the center of the lake. The aura of a void god realm king was too strong, so Zhao Feng suppressed his cultivation to the origin core realm. However, even then, those at the primal core realm were considered peak experts in the region, known as sovereigns. At this moment in time, on the island at the center of the lake, a grand event was being held. Most of the geniuses were at least at the true spirit realm. It's indeed worthy of being the Tao of entertainment meeting that happens once every 10 years. All the geniuses of the younger generation have gathered here. Although we don't have the right to participate, it's a rare chance to watch. Whispers could be heard from the crowd at the periphery. At the center of the meeting was a large circular plaza. In the 4 corners of the plaza, there were many seats stacked on top of each other. The highest was 18 floors. At the center of the plaza were 2 large platforms that looked like chessboards. The 2 platforms were each 10 miles long, and they faced each other several miles apart. At this moment in time, on the 2 platforms, there was a black-robed young man and a beautiful young girl. The girl in black played the flute, creating waves that crashed against the shore like an eagle spreading its wings. The sound waves of the music Tao created a tornado that charged towards the girl in front of her. The young girl sat quietly, she stretched out her hand elegantly and played her pipa. Circles of gentle rainbow ripples formed a formless force field that blocked the young man's music path attack. Tao of entertainment meeting. Zhao Feng floated in the clouds and watched the Tao of entertainment meeting below. The geniuses participating were all at the true mystic rank or above, and there were some at the true lord rank. A small number had even reached the origin core realm. From the looks of it, these geniuses came from 1-star and 2-star sections. The 2 of them fought for a while. In the end, the black-clothed youth couldn't keep up and was hit by the sound of a powerful army. Colorful arcs of light shook the black-clothed girl until she vomited blood. Great! as expected of a core disciple of the Six Qin Palace. After the victor was decided, there was a burst of praise and criticism coming from the seats on the surrounding steps. However, many gazes looked at the three geniuses of the Tao of Entertainment who had reached the primal core realm. The three geniuses, one male and two females, each sat in an elegant pavilion. Mystic Sound Palace, Six Qin Palace, Sky Sacred Qin Palace. The three head disciples. The male and two females in the three pavilions became the focus of everyone's gazes. The male was handsome and gentle, and the two females had elegant auras, as if they were classical beauties. Especially in the middle pavilion was a girl sitting in front of a qin. Just looking at her from the side was enough to steal one's soul. The woman was dressed in a snow-white dress, and her fine black hair fell to the ground. Her temperament was elegant and otherworldly. Her skin was like ice and her bones were like jade, and her eyebrows were like a painting. She was quiet like a fairy, and she had the classical charm of a painting. Amongst the geniuses of the Tao of Entertainment, this girl had an unparalleled aura in terms of looks and cultivation. The males couldn't hide the admiration in their eyes. Qin. Zhao Feng, who was in the clouds, couldn't help but exclaim when he saw the figure of this girl. The snow-white girl was like a classical beauty from a painting. She sat in front of a qin, and her calm aura of the Tao of Entertainment overlapped with the figure in his memory. Yu was lucky to win just then. I hope Goddess Snow Qin can teach me a thing or two. The graceful woman who had just won smiled sweetly. Although her words were polite, there was a hint of coldness in her clear eyes. Zhao Feng could see that the reason why this elegant girl won just now was because she was stronger than the flute player in terms of strategy and strength. Furthermore, this girl's cultivation had reached the peak true lord rank. Lin Yu, your 6 zither 9 sounds has excellent temperament and has already entered the path of the zither. However, in terms of the use of the hollow sound, it is slightly lacking. The voice of the quiet woman called Fairy Snow Zither was gentle and pleasant. Just the sound alone seemed to outline the picturesque scenery of a clear spring and a small bridge. Even her voice has merged with the Tao of Entertainment and can communicate with heaven and earth. The expression of the elegant woman, who had been trying to provoke him earlier, changed. She looked into Goddess Snow Qin's eyes. They were as clear as the moon and seemed to have a power that could see through one's heart. She could not help but feel a sense of inferiority. Being the second-ranked core disciple of the Six Qin Palace, she originally wanted to fight Li Shui to test her strength. However, Goddess Snow Qin's mastery of the Tao of Entertainment was perfect. Not only did she see through her flaws, she even made her fall into the Tao of Entertainment. Li Shui's mastery of the Tao of Entertainment has reached such a level. Her every action radiates the Tao of Entertainment. The hearts of the other two peerless geniuses in the pavilions shook. This Li Shui is said to be the #1 genius of the Sky Sacred Qin Palace in the past several thousand years. Her appearance has brought some light to the declining Sky Sacred Qin Palace and she's become the hope of the clan. Discussion sounded below. Li Shui's few comments brought a huge wave to this Music Path conference. Before this, Li Shui's talent was only limited to legends. The other two peerless geniuses were silent for a long time. Li Shui. She's not Qin. In the clouds, Zhao Feng watched the battles in the Tao of Entertainment meeting. The format of the Tao of Entertainment conference was similar to the Geniuses Summit or the Tea Party. This was a gathering for the geniuses of the Tao of Entertainment to exchange pointers. The girl called Li Shui was the head disciple of the Sky Sacred Qin Palace, and her cultivation in the Qin surpassed everyone else. As time passed, the sparring sessions and comments were carried out in an orderly manner. Li Shui also appeared on stage once or twice. She was as graceful as a fairy. Her white hands gently stroked the zither, and supreme music resonated with the power of heaven and earth. Even the handsome man of the three entertainment Tao geniuses couldn't last more than 10 breaths in front of Li Shui. Strong. A measly late-stage small origin core realm can release battle power comparable to a sovereign lord by playing the Qin. Zhao Feng couldn't help but exclaim. The reason why he stopped was because Li Shuai had an aura similar to Lu Qinxin's. Even her beautiful figure looked similar to that of the other one. She comes from the sky-sacred Qin Palace, and her aura is similar to Qinxin's. However, I don't see Qinxin. Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed. His divine sense had scanned across the area and didn't find Lu Qinxin. This made Zhao Feng's heart go cold. 7 years later. If Lu Qinxin was at the sky-sacred Qin Palace, she definitely had the right to participate in the Tao of Entertainment conference with her talent and could even be listed as one of the 3 geniuses. However, Zhao Feng's divine sense scanned across the area and didn't find Lu Qinxin's aura. Chapter 733. Zhao Feng watched the entire event from the clouds. He didn't leave because he had found a clue. The Tao of Entertainment meeting slowly came to an end. Li Shui became the main character of the meeting. Her talent in the Tao of the Qin surpassed all the other geniuses of the Gan Sacred Island Zone. The other 2 geniuses of the Gan Sacred Island Zone couldn't even last 10 breaths in front of Li Shui. Even some of the seniors who cultivated the entertainment Tao felt inferior. It's even more exaggerated than the rumors. This Li Shui is said to be the #1 genius of the sky-sacred Qin Palace in the past several thousand years, but she's probably still a bit conservative. This girl is responsible for the revival of the sky-sacred Qin Palace. Some of the older experts of the Tao of Entertainment had worried expressions. Tens of thousands of years ago. The sky-sacred Qin Palace was a peak 2-star sect that had once entered the floating dream sacred land. However, in the next few thousand years, this legendary 2-star sect started to fall and lose its position as the ruler of the Tao of Entertainment. After the meeting ended, some of the people were leaving. However, Li Shui's every frown and smile attracted the attention of many people. Some of the young men seemed to have lost their souls. Some geniuses of the Tao of Entertainment gathered their courage and went to talk to Goddess Snow Qin. Right at this moment, Qiu, an astonishing arc of wind and lightning, swept down from the sky. Who's there? Goddess, watch out! The geniuses near Li Shui exclaimed. The owner of the arc of wind and lightning was extremely fast, and his aura had reached the sovereign lord level. Luckily, the unknown expert didn't attack after landing. Which bastard dares to do something to Goddess Snow Qin? The nearby geniuses calmed their emotions and stared at the youth surrounded by wind and lightning warily. The youth stood with his hands behind his back. He was handsome, and his aura had reached the sovereign lord level. The geniuses near Goddess Snow Qin didn't dare to attack. Of the geniuses present, the one with the highest cultivation was Li Shui, but she was only at the late-stage small origin core realm. Who are you? Li Shui's eyebrows furrowed, but she didn't panic. Her voice was like the sound of nature. She carefully inspected the young man before her. His talent and cultivation had surpassed all the geniuses present. Apart from the floating dream sacred land, it would be hard for any other island zone to have such a genius. I am Zhao Feng. I would like to invite Miss Li to admire the moon with me. The young man smiled faintly and casually, as if he was narrating a very ordinary matter. Admiring the moon. The entertainment path geniuses were shocked and furious. This fellow of unknown origins was truly bold, targeting Fairy Snow Qin in broad daylight. If I don't want to. Li Shui's clear eyes were as calm as the surface of a lake. No one could tell what she was thinking. You will. Zhao Feng smiled and slowly walked towards Li Shui. It turned out that the clue he was looking for was locked onto Li Shui. After all, this woman was the head disciple of the sky-sacred Qin Palace. If Lu Qinxin was also in the sect, she would definitely know about it. Furthermore, with this woman's talent, she had most likely entered the Heaven Saint Zither inheritance. Due to the fact that Li Shuai had an aura similar to Lu Qinxin's, Zhao Feng didn't forcefully use the soul-searching technique on her. Li Shuai inspected Zhao Feng silently, and curiosity flashed through her eyes. Instinct told her that this male had no ill intentions towards her. Stop right there. Bastard. Don't even think of harming Fairy Snow Qin. Some of the entertainment path geniuses present were filled with anger and joy. Maybe this was a good chance to show off in front of Fairy Snow Qin. Although the youth's cultivation was high, there were too many entertainment path geniuses present, and there were also experts of the older generation present. Zhao Feng ignored these geniuses and slowly walked towards Li Shuai. Bam! 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 The entertainment path geniuses that approached Zhao Feng were sent flying by an invisible force and spat out blood on the ground. Surprise flashed through Li Shuai's eyes. Even with her cultivation, she couldn't see through Zhao Feng. Brat! How dare you cause trouble at the banquet? The auras of several great Origin Core Realm sovereign lords came from several directions. Amongst them was a female in red who was a half-step king. A half-step king and 3 great Origin Core Realm sovereign lords flew over, worried that Zhao Feng would accidentally injure Li Shuai. Zhao Feng ignored them and slowly walked towards Li Shuai. He even extended a hand and made a gentlemanly gesture. The sight infuriated the experts of the older generation, including the red-shirt woman. This brat was arrogant and dared to ignore everyone. Boom! The experts of the older generation were enveloped by a magnificent power as they got close to Zhao Feng. What? How is this possible? Magnificent power of a king. The 4 of them, including the woman in red, were trapped in the void. Their thoughts and wills could not even muster up a single thought to resist. Shock and fear appeared in the eyes of the 4 experts of the older generation. The entire venue was dead silent. You. Li Shuai's expression finally changed as she looked at Zhao Feng in disbelief. Senior. Why are you making things difficult for a junior of the Tao of Entertainment? The female in red took a deep breath and barely managed to speak. At this moment, the experts of the older generation froze, and none of them dared to do anything. I just want to talk to her. Zhao Feng's tone was calm, and he didn't go too far. How would Shuai dare to refuse Senior's invitation? Li Shuai bit her lips and looked deeply at Zhao Feng with bitterness and helplessness. At this point, how could she not see Zhao Feng's true level? A half-step king and 3 great Origin Core Realm sovereign lords were instantly frozen in front of Zhao Feng. If he wanted to, he could decide their life and death with just a thought. Let's go. Zhao Feng nodded his head in admiration and grabbed Li Shuai's soft hand, and his magnificent power instantly pierced through the sky. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Feng and Li Shuai disappeared from the Tao of Entertainment banquet. Sai. The experts of the Tao of Entertainment all took in cold breaths. Some geniuses were dazed. Void God Realm King. The old supremacies who attacked earlier had bitter expressions on their faces. He probably isn't a normal king. Luckily, that person doesn't seem to have any ill intentions towards Shuai. If he really did attack, none of us would be able to survive. The female in red was dazed as she looked in the direction the 2 disappeared in. A while later, several thousand miles away, on a lone peak, Zhao Feng and Li Shuai stood side by side. He actually. Li Shuai broke free from Zhao Feng's hand, and a rare blush appeared on her face. She was angry, but apart from humiliation, there was also an indescribable feeling that made her heart beat faster. No matter what, the other party was a king that looked down on the world. No. Zhao Feng murmured. At the start, Zhao Feng had a trace of hope that Li Shuai's mind had been erased, and her aura had become a completely different person. However, after repeated checks, including physical contact, Zhao Feng was sure that Li Shuai and Lu Qinxin were 2 completely different people. Lady Li, you come from the Sky Sacred Qin Palace. Does your sect have a Sky Sacred Qin inheritance? Did it open 7 years ago? Zhao Feng went straight to the point. Sky Sacred Qin inheritance. Li Shui thought for a while before answering, maybe the outside world can call it that. In reality, 7 years ago was when the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace opened. Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace. Hearing these words, Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye twitched. Meow meow. The little thieving cat also appeared and wiped the drool from its mouth. It hugged a flask of wine and drank 2 mouthfuls. What a cute little cat. Li Shui couldn't help but look at the little thieving cat a few more times. Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace? What kind of existence is that? Was there a genius that wasn't from your sect that entered 7 years ago? Zhao Feng said in a solemn tone. He was sure that he had found the key. Senior, you've asked me so many questions in one breath. Before that, can you answer one of Shui's questions? Li Shui's face revealed a rare hint of playfulness as she asked. Her eyes were like the moon, and her face had a faint blush that added to her charm. Maybe it was because she felt that Zhao Feng was easygoing and young, but Li Shui wasn't afraid of him. Zhao Feng paused and said, ask away. Senior, how old are you this year? I feel that you're not like those void god realm kings that have lived for thousands of years. Li Shui asked curiously. 24 years old, Zhao Feng was expressionless. 24. Li Shui paused, and she couldn't suppress the shock on her face. She didn't think that this senior king would be around the same age as her. Li Shui was the #1 genius of the Sky Sacred Qin Palace in several thousand years. She was a prodigy of the Tao of entertainment. However, this youth in front of her was around the same age as her, and he had reached the level of a king. Now, you should answer my question. Zhao Feng gave a leisurely smile, a hint of self-satisfaction on his face. Li Shui suppressed the shock in her heart and finally calmed down before answering Zhao Feng's question. Apparently, the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace came from the ancient era before the Fan universe was born. It was discovered by the founder of the Sky Sacred Qin Palace tens of thousands of years ago and became the core of our inheritance. However, even the founder, who was half a step into the mystic light realm, wasn't able to decipher the secrets of the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace. Li Shui first talked about the history of the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace. Zhao Feng started to think. From the looks of it, it was the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace that took Lu Qinxin away from the sacred True Dragon Gathering. Because this inheritance belonged to the Tao of entertainment, it rarely appeared in history and didn't attract much attention. Then did an outsider enter the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace 7 years ago? Zhao Feng asked. Hearing that, Li Shui started to think. If you asked someone else, you might not have an answer. However, when I entered the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace 7 years ago, I was far ahead of all the other geniuses, but I saw a figure on the 32nd floor. Li Shui replied. She seemed a little uncertain. A figure? Zhao Feng's eyes locked onto Li Shui. 7 years ago, I thought that it was just an illusion. The Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace is split into 49 floors. The more floors you reach, the more talent you have in the Tao of entertainment. At that time, all the geniuses in the clan were left behind by me. How could there be someone ahead of me and reach a higher level? Li Shui bit her lips. 7 years ago, she had seen that vague figure, but she had always thought that it was just an illusion. She didn't believe that there was someone more talented than her in the Tao of entertainment. It was because she didn't believe it and couldn't accept it that Li Shui instinctively thought it was an illusion. Hearing up to here, Zhao Feng was almost certain that Lu Qinxin had entered the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace. Take me to the Sky Sacred Qin Palace. Chapter 734. Zhao Feng no longer hesitated, taking Li Shui with him and flying for almost 10,000 miles. Not long later, a land of mountains and rivers with hundreds of flowers swirling in the air appeared in front of him. It was like a paradise drawn by mountains and rivers in a painting. The magnificent scenery of nature washed away all the greenery of the world, and all the hustle and bustle were far away. This tranquil, and picturesque scenery caused one to be immersed in it, unable to extricate themselves. Zhao Feng's slightly anxious mood calmed down. He had gained some and lost some on this trip, and he had started to get over it. All he wanted was to have a clear conscience. We're here. Li Xue took Zhao Feng and flew toward a mountain that was surrounded by water. There were many pavilions on the mountain, and the faint sound of a zither could be heard. This was the mountain gate of the sky's sacred Qin Palace, a place that stood aloof from worldly affairs and tranquility. Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye caught the aura of the sky's sacred Qin Palace, and he suddenly understood why the sky's sacred Qin Palace was slowly declining. Why was it so hard for sects that cultivated the Tao of entertainment to stand at the peak of this era? It was because this place was too peaceful. A worry-free environment lacked competition and lost the fighting spirit. Xue. Sisterly, along the way, the disciples of the sky's sacred Qin Palace greeted Li Xue. These people curiously inspected Zhao Feng. Seeing Zhao Feng and Li Xue fly side by side, some of the male disciples couldn't help but look at them with jealousy and hatred. Enforcers, this is an esteemed guest that Master invited. Li Xue said. The members in charge of enforcing the rules heard Li Xue's solemn words and retreated. Li Xue calmed down slightly. The person next to her was a void god realm king. If there was any conflict, it wouldn't be a joke. Not long later, the two arrived in front of a palace surrounded by a white lotus. The palace master and first elder are in seclusion. In front of the palace, two members of the sky's sacred Qin Palace, a man and a woman, stopped the two. Zhao Feng understood the current situation of the sky's sacred Qin Palace from Li Xue. There were two void god realm kings in the sky's sacred Qin Palace, the palace master and first elder. They were a couple. Seclusion. The couple from the Zither Palace couldn't be a couple. The way of cultivation, right? Zhao Feng couldn't help but have evil thoughts. As he grew older, he was no longer the wooden and pure youth he was at the beginning. He was already very clear about the matters between men and women. Senior Zhao, you see, Li Xue was in a difficult position. The palace lord and first elder were both in seclusion, but Zhao Feng was a void god realm king and couldn't be ignored. I can't wait. Zhao Feng pondered for a moment before coming to a decision. If one stayed in one place for too long, the danger of being hunted down would gradually increase. You should know. Zhao Feng's group of 4 had raided a 2-star battlefield a few days ago. The girl with the eye of destiny was no pushover. Boom! Suddenly, a vast magnificent power of a king enveloped the palace like a giant mountain. Colorful lotuses of light appeared on the surface of the palace, forming a powerful protective formation. You, stop! Li Xue's expression changed dramatically when she felt the magnificent power of a king. Zhao Feng's control was very good. He only controlled the magnificent power in a small area, or else the entire mountain might collapse. Crack! The lotuses of light around the palace started to shatter. One had to know that Zhao Feng's soul was on par with an emperor's, and his intent was also extremely strong. Who's there? Which king dares to invade the Zither Palace? The exclamations of a male and female came from within the palace. Zhao Feng stood with his hands behind his back and had a faint smile on his face. Li Xue looked at the youth in front of her, who was surrounded by a layer of magnificent power. Was this young king not afraid of angering the two kings of the Zither Palace? Shua! Shua! A man and a woman, two figures shrouded in the radiance of mighty power, appeared in front of the two. One of them was a noble beauty, the palace lord of the Zither Palace. The other scholarly middle-aged man was obviously the first elder of the Zither Palace. Xue. The beauty in green and the scholarly middle-aged man looked at Zhao Feng and Li Xue in surprise. From the looks of it, Zhao Feng and Li Xue were getting along well. The two kings let out a breath and couldn't help but suspect the relationship between Zhao Feng and Li Xue. Could it be that Xue has found a future husband who's a king? The gaze of the beauty in green made Li Xue's face turn red. She knew that her master had misunderstood. The palace master and first elder didn't question him angrily. Instead, they inspected Zhao Feng. Being an expert that cultivated the Tao of entertainment, he had a good cultivation. Furthermore, as a powerful void god realm king at such a young age, it was understandable that he didn't harm a single flower or grass when he visited the sky-sacred Qin palace. The two kings looked at each other. They were sure that they didn't know this void god realm king. I'm Zhao Feng, and I come from the true martial spiritual zone. I have an important matter that requires me to come to the sky-sacred Qin palace to visit the two seniors. Zhao Feng said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Please. The two kings that cultivated the Tao of entertainment had a good impression of Zhao Feng when they saw that he was polite and didn't have any youthful arrogance. The sky-sacred Qin palace master would rather Zhao Feng and Li Xue had that kind of relationship. After all, it was rare to see such a young king, and his void god realm intent seemed to be slightly stronger than the two of them. Within an elegant and fragrant hall, the palace master and her husband, Zhao Feng, and Li Xue sat down. As they spoke, Zhao Feng told them the reason for their visit. Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace? Xue, did you really see that figure 7 years ago? The couple from the sky-sacred Qin palace were shocked. The Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace was discovered by the founder of the sky-sacred Qin Palace, and it was the core inheritance of the sky-sacred Qin Palace. Now, they found out that an outsider had entered the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace. It was the figure of a female that matched the person Senior Zhao mentioned. If it was just an illusion, how could it be so coincidental? Li Xue confirmed. She had just talked to Zhao Feng, and the figure she had seen 7 years ago matched the Lu Qinxin that Zhao Feng had described. There's such a thing. No wonder the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace opened by itself back then. The couple from the sky-sacred Qin Palace felt that this was unbelievable. The two of them looked at each other. After a brief exchange, they quickly came to a decision. We must find out the truth. The couple from the sky-sacred Qin Palace had solemn expressions. The Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace was the core inheritance of the sky-sacred Qin Palace, and an outsider had entered without them knowing. This made it hard for the couple from the sky-sacred Qin Palace to be at peace. From a certain perspective, this was a hidden danger for the sky-sacred Qin Palace. The couple decided to find out the truth, and if there were any flaws in the inheritance, they had to fix it. The two decided to work together to find out the truth. Zhao Feng nodded his head. The couple from the sky-sacred Qin Palace were both reasonable and didn't purposely reject Zhao Feng. Their goals were basically the same. Zhao Feng wanted to confirm whether his fiancée was dead or alive, while the couple from the sky-sacred Qin Palace wanted to find out if there were any flaws in the core inheritance. An hour later, the couple gathered the upper echelon of the sky-sacred Qin Palace. The weakest elder participating in the meeting was a peak sovereign lord. This was because they were going to enter the core inheritance through an abnormal method. In principle, this went against the rules of the sect. Such an action required the 9 grand elders to make a decision together in order to ensure fairness. After understanding the seriousness of the matter, the 9 elders approved it. An outsider entering the core inheritance without anyone knowing was something that couldn't be tolerated. A while later, the upper echelon of the sky-sacred Qin Palace arrived at the forbidden grounds of the sect. In their vision was a vast abyss covered in mist. Zhao Feng's left eye could faintly see an ancient and mysterious palace. This palace was grand and majestic. It had 49 floors, and it was shrouded in a layer of light that made it hard to see clearly. However, Zhao Feng could see that the ancient sound palace was shaped like a wheel, and the center should be empty. In the darkness, Zhao Feng's 10,000 ancient races bloodline trembled, and his god's spiritual eye twitched. Even though the Fanluan ancient sound palace was sealed by a profound array, Zhao Feng could still feel the aura of the ancient era. This ancient aura was similar to the aura in the ancient dream realm. Zhao Feng instinctively felt that the Fanluan ancient sound palace wasn't something the sky sacred Qin palace could control. This palace was discovered by the founder of the sky sacred Qin palace. Even an expert that was half a step into the mystic light realm couldn't solve all the secrets of the ancient sound palace. When the couple and the elders of the sky sacred Qin palace waved their array flags, and the mist in the abyss started to move before dispersing and revealing the outline of the Fanluan ancient sound palace. Even though the mist disappeared, the ultimate palace of the Tao of entertainment still gave off a blurry and chaotic feeling. However, the ancient aura became stronger, and everyone present felt as if they were ants looking up at a giant. Whoosh! 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 The couple led the upper echelon of the sky sacred Qin palace, including Zhao Feng and Li Shui, into the abyss. Apart from Li Shui, the weakest amongst them was at the peak Great Origin Core realm. Next, the couple, Zhao Feng, and the other three kings worked together to forcefully open the Fanluan ancient sound palace. Even though the sky sacred Qin palace controlled the array, there was still a lot of resistance when it was opened normally. In an instant, 3 surges of magnificent power merged into a unique silver token in front of the Fanluan ancient sound palace. The couple from the sky sacred Qin palace were both domain-level kings. The magnificent power that Zhao Feng displayed wasn't any weaker than the couple's. This meant that his king intent had reached at least the domain-level king level. When the silver token released a light that shot into the sky, and it trembled as it struggled to rise. At the same time, boom! Boom! In front of the Fanluan ancient sound palace, an ancient silver metal door slowly opened. Every time the token rose, the door would open a little more. The door stopped when it was only a third of the way open. Because it wasn't opened normally, it was already pretty good if it could open a third of the way. It was as tall as a person. Hurry up! The couple's urgent voice sounded. Whoosh! Zhao Feng turned into a scarlet-red arc of lightning and entered the Fanluan ancient sound palace at his fastest speed. After that, the couple from the sky sacred Qin palace took Li Shui and entered the ancient sound palace together, followed by the elders. On the first floor of the Fanluan ancient sound palace, below their feet was a winding staircase that didn't seem to have an end. In front of them was a stone wall with many ancient paintings. A weird scene appeared. The scenes within the paintings, the figures of the ancient people, and even their voices jumped out of the wall and appeared in front of them. Zhao Feng's footsteps paused as he met with a resistance. Chapter 735. The figures in the painting jumped out, and a few pavilions appeared in his field of vision. A few females in ancient clothes were dancing with the accompaniment of a zither player. There were servants coming and going, and it was a scene of singing and dancing. At the two ends of the song and dance were some officials, and at the head of the table sat a sovereign. The scene in front of him couldn't be distinguished from reality. Those people were chatting and drinking, and their expressions and words were flawless. Zhao Feng was slightly surprised. He felt a trace of resistance as he walked forward. The scenes that jumped out of the painting seemed to have real power. Whether it was the singing of the dancers or the officials or sovereigns present, they all had the power to affect reality. This bit of resistance obviously couldn't stop Zhao Feng. However, the problem was that this was only the first level. He couldn't imagine what kind of power there would be in the higher levels. It's just the music and dance of the human world. Li Shui smiled faintly as she walked in front. With a point of her finger, the scenes all disappeared. The winding stairs once again appeared and led to the second level. Zhao Feng couldn't help but be amazed. Those who cultivated the Tao of music could easily solve these songs and dances that affected reality. If it was a layman who didn't understand music, there would be a lot of resistance if they tried to solve it by force. Because it's not a normal opening, there are no rewards for passing each level, and you can't obtain any inheritance or comprehension. An elder murmured. If the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace had opened normally, the geniuses that entered would receive rewards for passing a certain level. Some of the rewards were treasured instruments, some were comprehension, and some were secret techniques of the Tao of music. In some levels, there were even inheritances of the ancient Tao of music. However, because it was not a normal opening, there were no rewards. It was just a simple observation. Although there are no rewards, as long as one person passes the level, everyone can enter the next level. The princess of the Sky Sacred Qin Palace nodded and said. The Sky Sacred Qin Palace's focus was to find the flaws in the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace. They entered the second level. A misty mountain appeared from the painting wall. Birds were singing and flowers were fragrant. The sounds of nature could be heard. In the deep mountain, a tiger's roar sounded, and a strong gust of wind blew Zhao Feng's clothes in the wind. His footsteps paused, and the resistance was stronger than the previous level. And this was Zhao Feng, whose cultivation had reached the king realm. If it was a genius below the true spirit realm, they would probably be shocked. A mere tiger roar, soul-shocking roar, Li Shui floated forward. Before the scene of the deep mountain in front of her could fully unfold, it quickly disappeared. As long as one understood the profound theory of the music Tao, they would be able to understand it. All of this was used to test the challenger. However, Zhao Feng had a feeling that the scene on the wall was not a simple illusion. Li Shui easily solved the first 10 levels. With her extremely high entertainment path talent, she reached the 32nd level 7 years ago. When she reached the 15th floor, Li Shui slowed down a little. Passing the test mainly tests one's attainment in music Tao, talent, and comprehension. Cultivation isn't the most important thing. Zhao Feng concluded. Otherwise, Lu Qinxin wouldn't have been able to reach the 32nd floor and above 7 years ago. The 20th floor. Ancient beasts came out of the wall one after another. Their auras were enough to scare those at the true lord rank. At this moment, Li Shui needed to make a move. Her lips parted slightly, and an invisible power of the Tao of music seemed to shatter the ancient beasts. The 28th floor of the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace. On this floor, a scholarly and handsome male in white sat at the top of a mountain and listened to the waterfall as he played the qin. The male in white had a deep gaze as he looked at the group with a smile. Void God Realm King. Zhao Feng was surprised. Although the male in white had concealed his aura, Zhao Feng was still shocked. Guests from afar, why don't you play a song and enjoy the scenery together? The male in white's voice gave others a feeling of being bathed in the spring wind. According to the normal method, Li Shui needed to play a song and drink with the male in order to win his favor. That male in white's cultivation has reached the void god realm. Normal geniuses won't be able to pass with their entertainment path. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled. Li Shui was about to go up, but she was stopped by Zhao Feng. The couple from the Sacred Qin Palace and company also revealed puzzled expressions. Only to see. Zhao Feng walked up and punched toward the male in white. Boom! This punch contained Zhao Feng's magnificent power as well as the illusion maze domain and the wind lightning domain. You! The male in white screamed as he was sent flying by Zhao Feng's punch and spat out a mouthful of blood. Shua! The scenery in front of them, including the male, returned to the wall. This way, I can save more time. Zhao Feng clapped his hands and signaled for Li Shui to continue forward. After the 30th floor, the difficulty increased. For example, there was a huge cage on the 33rd floor, and a legendary evil dragon was sealed inside. The evil dragon was black, and its powerful dragon bloodline aura made the hearts of everyone present shake. Only Zhao Feng's mystic ice-scaled race bloodline wasn't affected. Bam! 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 The cage that trapped the evil dragon started to shake. It wouldn't be able to last for more than half a breath. It's an inferior descendant of the legendary true dragon race. The child demigod appeared out of nowhere and stared at the evil dragon. Even if it was an inferior descendant of a true dragon, its body was comparable to an emperor's battle power. The last time I challenged the trial, I was defeated on this floor. However, I encountered a primordial savage beast 7 years ago. Li Shuai said. The difficulty of this floor wasn't small. In order to pass, one had to use the Tao of entertainment to appease the evil dragon. Zhao Feng could tell that although the evil dragon was strong, its intelligence wasn't very high. However, even then, it was extremely difficult to appease the evil dragon and make it return to the wall. Compared to 7 years ago, Li Shuai's mastery of the Tao of entertainment was much higher. She came before the cage and was surrounded by a warm and motherly aura. Then, Li Shuai's steps were light and graceful as she danced. Her ethereal and serene voice drifted into his ears. The evil dragon's gaze was attracted by Li Shuai, and its restless emotions finally calmed down. 4 hours later, the evil dragon fell asleep, and the scene in front of it returned to the wall. The difficulty increased by several times or even more when it neared the 40th floor. With Li Shuai's talent and comprehension, it was extremely difficult to pass. Luckily, she wasn't the only one who cultivated the Tao of entertainment. The couple from the Qin Palace also entered the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace. Although there was no reward for passing the floor, everyone could solve the problem together. On the 40th floor, an old man with a goatee appeared on the hill and gave everyone 3 weird problems. They didn't just test the Tao of entertainment, they also tested the philosophy of fate. Even the couple from the Zither Palace found it hard to pass this trial. Even Zhao Feng and the child demigod couldn't see through the aura of the old man with a goatee. At this point in time, the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace didn't just test the 4 arts, it also tested the philosophy of life and fate. Fortunately, it wasn't a matter of one person's intelligence. Li Shuai and the Zither Palace couple were the main force, with the little thieving cat and the child demigod behind them. The little thieving cat knew how to predict fate, so it could provide some help. The child demigod's intent was very high, and he had experienced the god tribulation and revived from a drop of blood, so his comprehension of life was extraordinary. The wisdom of the crowd was limitless. It took him half a day to clear this trial. Hee. Heaven's legacy cat. The goateed old man smiled and glanced at the little thieving cat. Meow, meow. The little thieving cat looked pensively at the goateed old man and revealed a rare complex expression. Whoosh! The scene in front of him disappeared, and the goateed old man returned to the painting. The ancient Sound Palace had a total of 49 levels. After the 40th floor, there were only 9 floors left. For the next 9 levels, the difficulty increased with each level, and there were even scenes of characters from ancient myths and legends. That was not something that could be attacked with brute force. I'm afraid that even a God Realm expert wouldn't be able to force his way in. The power of the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace, the child demigod had a solemn expression. Thankfully, because it wasn't a normal opening, even if they couldn't pass, they could return to the previous floor and re-enter. If it was a normal opening, there would be an inheritance, but if they couldn't pass, they would be teleported out. 44th floor. 45th floor. 46th floor. Everyone racked their brains. It was incomparably difficult for them to overcome the hurdles one after another. The 47th floor had been stuck for half a month. After failing many times, they had to return to the 46th floor and re-enter. Every time he re-entered, the scenery and details in the painting might change. Zhao Feng's heart went cold. Even if Lu Qinxin was talented and proficient in the Tao of life, she probably wouldn't have been able to pass through level by level with her current cultivation. Of course. Zhao Feng had also forgotten about one factor. If they passed normally, there would be rewards, comprehension, and even inheritances. These were all variables. 48th floor. The couple from the Sky's Sacred Qin Palace were excited. Even the founder of the Sky's Sacred Qin Palace was said to have stopped at the 40th level when he officially tried to break through. However, there was no reward, but they could try again and again. It couldn't be considered a true pass. Furthermore, the addition of the little thieving cat and the child demigod made up for some of Li Xue's and the couple's shortcomings. 48th floor, the difficulty had reached an unsurpassable level. On this level, there were only 1 or 2 or 3 people in the scene, playing music, singing, or even painting or playing chess. The people in the scene were like gods, and their mastery of the Tao of music had reached a level where they could change fate. One of the women played a song that made people fall into a dream, unable to free themselves. Fortunately, only one representative was sent out to rescue him in time. On this floor, there was also a duel of chess. In the scene, 2 elders were playing chess and didn't know what was happening in the outside world. An elder of the Qin Palace was confident in chess and volunteered to help. In the end, the elder from the Zither Palace froze in front of the chessboard as soon as he stood there. In just a few breaths' time, the elder of the Qin Palace had turned into a stone statue and seemed to have experienced thousands of years. Time, the power of time. The child demigod's expression changed dramatically. This was the domain of gods. On this floor, every scene and person on the walls contained the power of heaven and earth. The 48th floor stumped everyone. They only dared to carefully test it out and immediately retreated if something was wrong. This went on for dozens of times. On the 48th attempt, a woman as cold as jade appeared in the scene. She was dressed in an elegant snow-white dress, full of ancient charm and poetic charm, like a fairy in a painting. The woman was quiet, tranquil, and elegant like a celestial being. She had an appearance that could captivate even birds and beasts, and she was quiet yet resentful as she sat before a zither. This figure. Li Xue was slightly familiar. Qin. How? Zhao Feng's expression changed dramatically as he stared at the goddess in the white dress. Chapter 736. On the 48th floor of the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace, Zhao Feng didn't think that he would be able to see the figure that he had been searching for 7 years in such a way. Lu Qinxin's appearance was the same as in his memories, but her aura was even stronger than when she was in the flooding lake city. This female was wearing a snow-white dress that was clean and untainted by dust. She was like a goddess from a painting, elegant and otherworldly, as if she stood at the peak of her generation. Feng, it's you. The woman who was as elegant as a fairy paled in shock. Bam! One of the strings on the qin in front of Lu Qinxin instantly broke. You know each other. The couple, Li Xue, the child demigod, and company were all stunned. After deciphering the 48th layer, every scene and character was a heaven-defying existence. The female in front of them wasn't an exception. However, the person that appeared this time seemed to know Zhao Feng. She's the person you're looking for. Li Xue's heart shook. The female's mastery of the Tao of entertainment had reached the peak, and her aura didn't seem to belong to this world. What Zhao Feng was searching for was a woman of such peerless beauty. You're Qinxin. Zhao Feng couldn't believe it. How could Lu Qinxin be the person on the wall? Lu Qinxin calmly looked at Zhao Feng. Her eyes were as clear as a pond in autumn, rippling with emotions. There was joy mixed with deep love and a hint of bitterness. Who exactly are you? Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye was fully opened and his left eye flashed with purple lightning as his purple hair blew in the wind. A powerful surge of eye intent stunned everyone present. This is his true strength. The hearts of the couple, Li Xue, and company shook, and they felt like they couldn't breathe. Feng, I'm Lu Qinxin, but I'm not the Qinxin you're looking for. Lu Qinxin looked deeply at Zhao Feng. Unknowingly, 2 streams of tears rolled down her face. Zhao Feng was dazed. What was going on? Every frown and smile of the beauty in front of him, as well as the hidden bitterness in her eyes, was exactly the same as Lu Qinxin when they parted. Qinxin. What was going on? Are you dead or alive? Zhao Feng took a deep breath. Even the god's spiritual eye couldn't see through the mysteries of the Fan Luan ancient sound palace. Only the dead will be able to retrace their steps in the painting. I am Lu Qinxin, but at the same time, I am not. To be more precise, I am a part of Lu Qinxin, possessing all of her abilities, memories, and emotions before she stepped into the 49th floor. Lu Qinxin said. Dead people? Zhao Feng's heart skipped a beat and he suddenly felt a chill. Lu Qinxin, she's dead? The couple and the child demigod both started to think. They had a rough idea of what kind of existence Lu Qinxin was. This Lu Qinxin should have been created by the power of the Fan Luan ancient sound palace. Whether she's an illusion or a life form remains to be seen. The child demigod had his own guesses. Only the dead will retrace their steps in the painting. From the looks of it, the real Lu Qinxin that Zhao Feng is looking for is already dead. Li Shui couldn't help but sympathize. Zhao Feng stood there for a long time with his hands trembling. Feng, I'm sorry. Lu Qinxin said with a trembling voice. She was created by the power of the Fan Luan ancient sound palace, but her memories of Zhao Feng were the same as the real Lu Qinxin's. Qinxin, how did you die? Zhao Feng calmed down. He felt that there was still some truth that he hadn't found out. Lu Qinxin didn't say anything and just looked at him with deep emotions. Schwa. Scenes instantly appeared in Zhao Feng's mind. A female in a snow-white dress solved the mysteries of the ancient sound palace step by step and explored the Tao of entertainment. Lu Qinxin received all sorts of rewards and comprehensions. However, as she solved the layers one by one, her body became exhausted. Lu Qinxin's comprehension far surpassed her cultivation and state of existence by thousands of times. On the 48th floor, Lu Qinxin's consciousness and life force were almost all used up. Facing the last floor that was right in front of her, she used up all her consciousness and life force to reach the 49th floor. The memories stopped here. Lu Qinxin should have died after that moment. The real Lu Qinxin you're looking for definitely died on the 49th floor. Otherwise, I wouldn't have appeared. Lu Qinxin said bitterly. When she mentioned the words, real Lu Qinxin, her heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. Zhao Feng fell silent for a long time to digest and accept this reality. A while later, I'm going to enter the 49th floor and confirm the truth. Zhao Feng had a determined expression. The Lu Qinxin in front of him was probably an illusion created by the Fan Luan ancient sound palace. Even Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye couldn't see through it. But you won't be able to pass me with your strength. Lu Qinxin said. Can't pass. Everyone looked at each other, but they didn't doubt it. One had to know that Lu Qinxin had used her own strength to reach the 48th floor and even the 49th floor. Her Tao of entertainment stood at the peak of this era. Lu Qinxin, since you and Zhao Feng know each other and love each other, why can't you let us pass? Li Shui couldn't help but ask. This is the rule of the Fan Luan ancient sound palace. I can't go against it. The woman shook her head. Everyone's heart dropped. Zhao Feng stood where he was and looked towards the 40-something floor with unwillingness in his heart. He wanted to see her, dead or alive. Zhao Feng felt that he was still one step away from the truth. Feng. The woman suddenly said, only you can beat me here, and there's only one way that you can think of. There's only one way. Zhao Feng calmed down and thought quickly. He cultivated the 10,000 divine thoughts technique, which allowed him to split his mind into thousands of thoughts. That method. He immediately thought of it, and bitterness appeared on his face. The scene of him making a bet with Lu Qinxin near the flooding lake city suddenly appeared in his mind. At that time, Lu Qinxin had unsealed her cultivation at the true spirit realm, and Zhao Feng wasn't her match at all. But in the end, Zhao Feng won. Thinking up to there, Zhao Feng took a step forward, and his god's spiritual eye released a strong surge of eye intent. Then, a dreamlike power permeated the void. Qinxin, do you know that ever since I saw you for the first time, my heart has been moved by you? Zhao Feng slowly walked toward Lu Qinxin. In a flash of purple light, the scene in front of them turned into a barren area near the flooding lake city. Is this real? The corners of the classical white-clothed woman's eyes were slightly red, and a hazy mist appeared. Qinxin, I've decided to marry you. Zhao Feng's voice was filled with emotion. Not only did he merge the god's spiritual eye's power of illusions into it, his own emotions were also released. Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace. Zhao Feng and Lu Qinxin tightly hugged each other. How? Zhao Feng smelled the familiar fragrance and the snow-white skin. The temperature was the same as the real thing. With the god's spiritual eye, the Lu Qinxin in front of him was real. If this is a dream, then this is too realistic. Zhao Feng was stunned. The highest level of illusion is reality. The lost in the eyes of the woman in his embrace slowly disappeared, but she still looked deeply at Zhao Feng. Are you really alive, or are you just an illusion? Waves appeared in Zhao Feng's heart. The legend said that the highest level of the Tao of illusions was reality. Feng, you have the ninth god's eye. Have you heard of the legend of the ancestral eye? Lu Qinxin said. The legend of the ancestral eye. Zhao Feng didn't have time to think about how Lu Qinxin knew that he had the ninth god's eye. Legend. The gathering of the 8 great god eyes could summon the supreme ancestral eye, which could change the world and rebuild the order of the universe. But the supreme ancestral eye could not be opened. It was said that everything in the world was a dream of the Brahma gods. If the ancestral eye opened, the dream would be destroyed. Was the Lu Qinxin in front of him real or just an illusion? Zhao Feng couldn't say for sure. Feng. Go and find your real Lu Qinxin. She, who has comprehended the Fanluan fate, is dead but her fate still exists. The white-robed Lu Qinxin gave Zhao Feng one last deep glance. That glance. It seemed to contain all her emotions and the essence of her life. Swish. The scene in front of him disappeared. Zhao Feng had successfully solved the scene of this floor. But for some reason, Zhao Feng felt a sense of emptiness. This time, he defeated the Lu Qinxin in the mural and used the same underhanded method to attack the flaw in her mind. The 48th floor is cleared. The couple and Li Shuai were overjoyed. The highest hall of the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace was located one level above. Meow, the little thieving cat's gaze landed on the large mural. Apart from it, no one else realized that the female in the mural looked deeply at Zhao Feng before revealing a pained expression and turning into a wisp of smoke that disappeared. Zhao Feng, we'll know the truth once we enter the 40th floor. Li Shuai said. The couple and company were slightly expectant. Okay. Zhao Feng nodded his head and stepped into the 49th floor. However, there were no more winding steps at the end of the 49th floor. Above them was a vast and mysterious sky. Under the starry sky, there was a ring-shaped hall that looked like a giant wheel. The material of the palace was the same as the Fanluan Ancient Sound Palace outside. However, the people in the hall could see the mysterious starry sky from the center of the circular dome. The mysterious sky seemed to have an unstoppable power. Is this fate? Zhao Feng sensed that the massive wheel-shaped palace was slowly moving through space. This is the ultimate law of the Tao of Entertainment Palace. The couple from the Zither Palace and company all felt the unstoppable power of fate in the sky. Suddenly, a layer of light appeared in a certain area of the circular palace. That's. Everyone's gazes moved away from the sky and landed on a certain person. More accurately speaking, it was a woman. Her skin was like ice jade, flawless, and she wore a snow-white veil. She sat cross-legged on the spot, surrounded by a layer of dense holy radiance that formed a mysterious connection with the mysterious starry sky above the dome. Qinxin. Zhao Feng could tell that it was Lu Qinxin from the back. Whoosh! Whoosh! Zhao Feng's figure flashed next to Lu Qinxin and saw the smile on her face. However, his figure froze as he stared at the motionless figure. It's a corpse without any aura of life. The palace master said. She's dead. A weird light flashed through the child demigod's eyes. After 7 years, not only had this corpse not rotted, its skin was jade white, flawless, and like snow. Moreover, it carried a trace of a rosy sheen, and it even emitted a trace of a refreshing fragrance that refreshed the heart. Just as everyone was silent, the situation changed. Chapter 737. Ancient Azure Island Zone, Azure Flower Continent. In the northern continent, within the Canopy Great Country, a black hexagonal tower stood deep in the mountains. The hexagonal tower was ancient and mysterious. It had 49 floors, and it was covered by an unfathomable power. This was the legendary sacred ground of the Azure Flower Continent, the 6 Warlock Divine Tower. At this moment in time, on the top floor of the 49th floor of the 6 Warlock Divine Tower, a tall elder stood with his hands behind his back and looked into the sky. The elder wore a black cloak that was as silent as the night. His eyes seemed to be turbid, but they were as deep as the stars, and they gave off boundless wisdom. Meow. A weird cat's cry sounded into the air. A large silver-black cat had a lazy expression as it leaned against the wall and yawned. Sage, you've been standing here for an entire day and night. There were some figures standing behind the sage. A female priest with a face as beautiful as the night moon and an old man with a white beard were standing close to them. Qinxin, you didn't disappoint me, and you didn't disappoint your mother and master. Very few people have been able to change one's fate. The sage had a gratified expression. His deep eyes seemed to pierce through space as he looked in the direction of the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace. When a layer of silver light suddenly appeared in the sky above the 6 Warlock Divine Tower and covered the sage. Meow. The big lazy cat shook and revealed an expectant expression. Qinxin. Lu Qinxin. The expressions of the female priest, the elder with a white beard, and company behind the sage changed dramatically. In his memories, wasn't Lu Qinxin buried in an inheritance? The sage of the 6 Warlock had already concluded that Lu Qinxin was probably dead. Lu Qinxin, how is this possible? A beautiful and elegant female had appeared on the 49th floor of the 6 Warlock Divine Tower. This female was extremely beautiful and had a peerless face. Her every frown and smile had the power to charm the world. The newcomer. It was Empress Qin, the disciple of the sage. Didn't Master say that Lu Qinxin was dead 5 or 6 years ago? Empress Qin's expression kept on changing as she looked at Zhao Feng. In fact, Lu Qinxin's death had already been confirmed by the 6 Warlock Sorcerer Sage back then. However, due to various considerations, the sage revealed Lu Qinxin's life and death. Master, didn't you already come to the conclusion that Lu Qinxin was already dead? How could she change her fate? Empress Qin asked respectfully. The 6 Warlock Sage took in 3 female disciples, and they chose the Fate Dao, Charm Dao, and Entertainment Dao inheritances respectively. Although Empress Qin was the only one who had survived, she had been the one that wasn't valued the most out of the 3 female disciples. Sages loved Fate Dao disciples the most, followed by Entertainment Dao disciples. Unfortunately, these 2 female disciples had paid a great price in order to alter Lu Qinxin's fate. Empress Qin only played a small part in their deaths. The end of the end is the beginning. Death also means a new life. The sage's cloudy eyes shone with a hint of love and joy. Everyone at the top of the pagoda had a strange expression on their faces. In his memory, it was rare to see a wise man with such a radiance on his face. Freshman. Could it be? The hearts of the priestess, the white-bearded elder, and company shook. At this moment, everyone had their own guesses. After experiencing the Fanluan realm, she has broken free from the shackles of fate. It's been 7 years, and the seed of new life has blossomed and is about to bear fruit. The sage's expression became brighter and brighter. A few of the Tao of Fate cultivators behind him started to think. Qinshin, why did you come this time? The sage turned around. He didn't mention anything about Lu Qinshin anymore. Master, the Scarlet Moon demonic religion has revived and is attacking the continent. The world is in danger. The Scarlet Moon demonic religion patriarch is apparently in seclusion, and he's planning to break through to the Void God realm. Empress Qin said. Over the past few years, the Scarlet Moon demonic religion had revived and was slowly attacking the continent. The Sacred Alliance and the 10 great clans were trying their best to suppress them, but they were unable to stop them. Sage, you will definitely save the world. The people behind him said. Empress Qin's eyes were filled with expectation. The Canopy Great country that she was from was also being invaded by the Scarlet Moon demonic religion. The Iron Blood religion would use this chance to take control of the entire great country and fight against the demonic religion. There's no need to worry. The Azure Flower continent is a place of great providence. The sage smiled. He didn't say anything else and returned to seclusion. Empress Qin let out a long sigh with unwillingness on her face. Meow the big lazy cat looked at her mischievously, then it disappeared from where it was. Gone Sacred Island Zone. On a desolate mini-zone with thin yuan qi. This mini-zone wasn't even 1/5 the size of the 8 desolate mountain, and it was a gray lake. At this moment in time a metallic ship floated on the surface of the lake, and it gave off a weird purple light. 2 death guards stood at the front and back of the ship. Gone Sacred Island Zone, Clan of the Tao of Entertainment. I didn't expect it to be here. A dark figure that was like the god of death appeared at the front of the ship. Next to him stood a white-eyed little girl. The white-eyed girl was growing very quickly. Her white eyes were filled with an aura of eye bloodline power, and there was a mysterious and unfathomable power within them. Master, the clan with the word Qin in it is where the target of death is. The white-eyed little girl said. She was now slender and elegant with a beautiful appearance, but she had an extraordinary temperament. A clan with the word Qin in it. Hee, this reminds me of an ancient and powerful clan of the Tao of Entertainment. The smile on the Emperor of Death's face started to become cold. Sky Sacred Qin Palace. This made him remember some grudges that had been sealed in the depths of his memories. The Emperor of Death started to reminisce. The life of any great emperor could be written into a legendary biography. The Death Emperor wasn't an exception. His growth and life weren't always smooth sailing. It was filled with ups and downs, and was full of ups and downs. Very few people knew. The Emperor of Death had to go through 2 rebirths to reach his current level. The first time, he finally reached the peak tier king level and was about to break through to the Void God realm. In the end, he was ambushed by several emperors. This was because the Emperor of Death had offended too many people, and he had too much potential since he had the eyes of death. Those emperors teamed up and killed the Emperor of Death. The Emperor of Death had a unique eyes of death, and his soul managed to escape. The second time, he was even more unlucky. Although he had become an emperor, he was chased by Mystic Light Realm sacred lords. This time, his soul had almost been destroyed. The second time I died was when I was chased by a sacred lord from the Floating Dreams sacred land. At that time, the Tao of Entertainment seemed to have helped me. The Emperor of Death thought back to his sealed memories. After 2 rebirths, he had reached his current level. Now that he stood at the peak of emperors, he had a lot of power, and he knew many terrifying death-forbidden techniques. Even Mystic Light Realm sacred lords wouldn't be willing to offend him or attack him easily. Sky Sacred Qin Palace, let's finish them off together. A cold killing intent appeared in the Emperor of Death's pitch-black eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, the Emperor of Death's figure was nowhere to be seen. Why is my fate being blocked by some power? The white-eyed little girl bit her lips as she held a brush. In the end, she tried her best and managed to draw a picture. The white-eyed little girl's drawing skills had obviously improved. In the picture, one could clearly see the Emperor of Death and a purple-haired youth facing each other. Are they finally going to meet? The two death guards next to her looked at the scene in the picture. At the same time, on the 49th floor of the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace under the mysterious and boundless ancient starry sky, everyone in the ring-shaped palace suddenly paled. Her flawless body was surrounded by a layer of starlight and gave off a mysterious fragrance that seemed to have the effect of cleansing one's soul. Suddenly, her snow-white skin and jade-like bones began to melt little by little in the mysterious starlight. Qin. Zhao Feng exclaimed. The smiling Lu Qin, who was right in front of him, melted bit by bit in the starlight. Everyone's jaws dropped, but they couldn't do anything. Feng, I can die without regrets since you're here. It's my fortune. A gentle voice sounded on the 49th floor of the ancient Sound Palace. Only to see. A Lu Qin formed by starlight appeared from the melting body. She wore a snow-white dress and looked like a goddess from a painting. Ding! Underneath the corpse that had completely melted, there was a rusty ancient copper coin. Qin, are you dead or alive? Do you still exist? Zhao Feng stared at the Lu Qin. Zhao Feng could tell that this Lu Qin was completely formed by intent. Feng, my death is for me to break through the shackles of fate. Since you found this place, it means that we'll still be together in our next lives. Lu Qin, who was surrounded by starlight, smiled in satisfaction. When her body, which was made of starlight, showed signs of instability, and the light gradually dimmed, Zhao Feng's expression changed. This was only a wisp of intent left behind by Lu Qin, and it appeared through the mysterious power of the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace. There's not much time left. Lu Qin's expression became serious as she said, Feng, take this coin. It might help you resolve the danger that's coming. Xiao. The Lu Qin formed by starlight turned into a dot of light and merged into the coin. Instantly, the rusty coin glowed with mysterious starlight and landed in Zhao Feng's palm. Feng, this is my gift for you, see you in the next life. That clear and gentle voice faded into the void. Lu Qin's aura disappeared from the 49th floor of the Fan Luan Ancient Sound Palace. Zhao Feng stared at the starlight coin in his hand and was dazed for a moment. The danger that's coming? Did Qin already predict something? Zhao Feng's consciousness sank into the coin. Instantly, his mind and consciousness entered a starry world. In this world, the sun, moon, and stars revolved in a mysterious way and created an immeasurable power. In the next instant, all kinds of comprehension and concepts merged into Zhao Feng's mind as the sun, moon, and stars revolved. The sound of a zither seemed to enter Zhao Feng's ears and reverberated in his soul. The ancient coin contained a special power and concept of the Tao of music that merged into Zhao Feng's soul. Zhao Feng felt that his soul had become clear and pure. The effect was more than 10 times that of the illusion god wine. Chapter 738. The power of the Tao of music contained within the coin was extremely unique. Not only could it increase one's intent, it could also cleanse and strengthen one's soul. It could be said that it had both the mermaid tears and the illusion god wine, but the effect was even stronger. Within the world of stars, the sun, moon, and stars spun in a profound way, and they contained the laws of the universe. The music of the Tao of music seemed to have penetrated through the reincarnation time and space, pulling at one's heart and soul, making one enter a state of emptiness. In just a few breaths' time, Zhao Feng felt as if he were a deity, and his sole intent was clear and had the effect of removing impurities and purifying it. One had to know, Zhao Feng's soul was already on the same level as an emperor's, and now that it had been refined, it was as transparent as glass. Of course, the increase in intent was what moved Zhao Feng. In this short period of time, Zhao Feng's soul intent had reached a perfect level. Everything in his senses was extremely clear, and the intent of heaven and earth appeared right in front of him. This is the perfect intent that only emperors can have. Zhao Feng sighed in his heart. However, just like the illusion god wine, the effect was only temporary. The illusion god wine was very helpful to those below the void god realm, but after becoming a king, the intent of the soul would change, and it would be countless times stronger than the origin core realm. Therefore, even if the bronze coin was 10 times stronger than the illusion god wine, it wouldn't be able to make Zhao Feng instantly break through. Shua. Zhao Feng's consciousness returned to reality, and the feeling of intent quickly faded. Everything was like the moon in the water. As for the bronze coin in his hand, the starry patterns on its surface had dimmed a little. Master. The child demigod was surprised. The slight change in Zhao Feng's aura just now naturally didn't escape his eyes. Seniors, we've reached our goal. Zhao Feng expressed his gratitude toward the couple. They had pretty much confirmed Lu Qinxin's whereabouts. The couple still had puzzled expressions. They still hadn't figured out what had happened to the Fan Luan ancient sound palace. Brother Zhao, do you know how Lu Qinxin entered the Fan Luan ancient sound palace? The couple looked over with questioning gazes. The Fan Luan ancient sound palace comes from the ancient era before the Fan universe was born, and it involves the laws of heaven and earth, including the Tao of music, the Tao of life, and samsara. It's not something that any force can control. Zhao Feng said. In his mind, there were the memories of Lu Qinxin on the wall, as well as the enlightenment of the music Tao from the Starspot ancient copper coin. Firstly, the Fan Luan ancient sound palace wasn't under the complete control of the Zither palace. Even the founder couldn't do that. Secondly, it involved karma of the Tao of fate, as well as a mysterious force. There was also a of karma and a of Tao. Demigod of soul of divine. The of Tao of soul. The Tao of the of song. Of Tao, which the Chen, and many that of divine, Zhao Chen. If it wasn't for Qinxin, I wouldn't have entered the outside world so quickly, and I would have missed the demigod Forgotten Garden. If it wasn't for Qinxin, I wouldn't have entered the outside world so quickly, and I would have missed the demigod Forgotten Garden. Zhao Feng understood fate very well. Back then, becoming Lord Guanjuan's disciple was a turning point in his fate. Otherwise, Zhao Feng wouldn't have entered the world of cultivation so quickly, and it would have been delayed for decades. If Zhao Feng had listened to Patriarch Hang's suggestion and entered a 2-star sect through the Sacred Alliance, he would have only reached the peak small origin core realm. The skeletal division leader was the same. It only reached its current level because it followed Zhao Feng. One had to know that. The skeletal division leader's current strength was comparable to the Scarlet Moon Patriarch's, and with the addition of the Ghost Corpse curse, it was even stronger than the Scarlet Moon Patriarch's. The group of people walked down from the 49th floor. There was still some doubt in the couple's eyes, but the Fan Luan ancient sound palace wasn't something they could control. Senior Zhao, it doesn't seem like Lady Lu died a simple death since she was able to reach the 49th floor. Li Shui couldn't help but be curious. There were many things that were weird about this. Firstly, if Lu Qinxin had stopped at the 48th floor, it would have been a good choice. Secondly, Zhao Feng didn't seem to be as sad as one would imagine. In fact, he was extremely calm. Qinxin succeeded in reversing fate and luck. She died contentedly. Everything she did seemed to be paving the way for a new life. Zhao Feng said in a low tone. After all, Lu Qinxin didn't die a violent death. That was her goal. The fact that Zhao Feng had found her made her have no regrets. She had even prepared a gift for Zhao Feng's possible arrival. I still need to ask the sage about Qinxin's new life. Zhao Feng thought. Now, 7 years had passed. Zhao Feng suspected that Lu Qinxin had been reborn for 6 or 7 years. After leaving the ancient Sound Palace, Zhao Feng and the couple worked together to reseal the Fanluan ancient Sound Palace. On the same day, under the urging of the Sky Sacred Qin Palace couple, Zhao Feng decided to temporarily stay in the Sky Sacred Qin Palace as a guest. The couple from the Sky Sacred Qin Palace didn't know that their unintentional action had helped the Sky Sacred Qin Palace avoid a disaster. Zhao Feng wanted to comprehend the star-spotted ancient bronze coin, so he agreed. Inside an elegant loft, Zhao Feng sat cross-legged and started to comprehend the star-spotted ancient bronze coin. His consciousness entered the vast and mysterious starry world. The sound of the zither lingered in his ears. It was dreamy and illusory, as if it had penetrated the reincarnation time and space. Zhao Feng instantly entered a transcendent state, and his soul intent rose once again. This time, in this peaceful environment, Zhao Feng used every second he had to comprehend. In order to increase the effect of his comprehension, Zhao Feng opened his god's spiritual eye and tried to imprint the intent into his mind. Zhao Feng didn't just rely on the star-spotted ancient bronze coin. He would only comprehend for 10 breaths each time, and then use a few hours to comprehend the power of heaven and earth to stabilize his intent. After all, there was a limit to the power of the Tao of music from the star-spotted ancient bronze coin. Zhao Feng wanted to absorb the most of its power. Furthermore, this star-spotted ancient bronze coin was Lu Qinxin's final gift, and Zhao Feng didn't want to use up all of its power, so he wanted to keep it. Time passed by. Surges of heaven and earth power would occasionally appear in the air above Zhao Feng's building, but they would quickly disappear. The intent contained within them seemed to have surpassed the level of a king. Within the dimension of his left eye, the size of the purple soul sea didn't change much, but it started to become translucent. This was something that only emperors who had reached the peak stages of the void god realm could have. Zhao Feng felt that his mental energy was like a seedling that was growing. The power of his intent spread through heaven and earth, and it became stronger and stronger. However, the starlight on the surface of the star-spotted ancient bronze coin started to dim. I'm just a step away from forming emperor intent. Excitement and expectation appeared in Zhao Feng's heart. After being refined by the god tribulation lightning and the ancient dream realm, his soul was comparable to an emperor's, and he had all the requirements to form emperor intent. As long as his intent increased by half a level, everything would happen. In the blink of an eye, a day or two passed. The power of heaven and earth above the building that Zhao Feng was in started to twist, and there was a layer of light on the surface. The scene was like auspicious clouds enveloping the surroundings, and it was extraordinary. No matter how hard Zhao Feng tried to hide it, he couldn't stop this interaction between heaven and earth. The increase in his intent was to become one with heaven and earth and control the mysteries of heaven and earth. It's about time. Zhao Feng's mental energy intent was like a pearl that was being refined. It started to become crystal clear and gave off a rare light. At this moment in time, he had a hallucination that the power of wind, thunder, and fire in this world revolved around his will as if they were worshipping the emperor. If he was willing. With just one intent, Zhao Feng could restrict the space of an area and not just affect the heaven-earth yuan qi. Normal emperors' understanding of heaven and earth had reached an unimaginable level. As a result, they were able to materialize their domain space and form a private elementary small world. However, a little world was built on the true yuan dimension, which was the source of power. At a certain moment in time, Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye suddenly jumped a few times, as if it was giving a warning. Suddenly, a shocking intent of death crossed the limitless ocean and entered the Sky Qin zone where the Sky Sacred Qin Palace was. An hour later, A strong magnificent power of death quickly approached the sky-sacred Qin palace. It's the intent of an emperor, and it's the rare intent of death. The hearts of the couple from the sky-sacred Qin palace jumped. Everyone, be on guard. The heavenly sacred Qin palace hurriedly activated the mountain protecting formation. Is it here? The child demigod stood in front of the building and looked in a certain direction. The intent of an emperor was extremely strong. In terms of intent, it wasn't any weaker than a mystic light realm. After all, a mystic light realm's true yuan was the fusion of the soul and the true yuan. Even the child demigod felt uneasy in his mind. As the magnificent power of death neared, countless beings within several thousand miles felt the shadow of death, and their bodies went cold from fear. From the small ants to the human sovereigns and kings, they all felt uneasy and afraid. Emperor of Death, why have you come to the sky-sacred Qin palace? The couple from the sky-sacred Qin palace stood in the air as their magnificent powers covered the entrance. The two kings, one Qin and one sword, stood side by side, and their spatial domains actually supported each other. The couple from the sky-sacred Qin palace were originally a duo. Their cultivation complemented each other, and after a while, they became experts that teamed up against each other. The combination of their Qin and sword had once defeated peak-tier kings in a head-on battle. However, at this moment in time, facing the magnificent power of death that seemed to be able to devour everything, their faces went white, and they were like two candles in a storm. In their vision, the world fell into darkness. An ancient and imposing figure wearing a dark golden crown approached step by step like the projection of the Grim Reaper. Emperor of Death. The entire heavenly sacred Zither Palace was deathly silent. The couple from the sky-sacred Qin Palace knew this ancient Emperor of Death very well. The previous leader of the sky-sacred Qin Palace had once participated in hunting down the Emperor of Death, even if he was just a supporting force. Now that the Emperor of Death had arrived, the sky-sacred Qin Palace wouldn't be able to escape. Chapter 739. The Qin sword and Qin couple from the sky-sacred Qin Palace acted as if they were facing a great enemy. However, the coldness of death that was like a torrent caused their limbs to stiffen and their minds to be oppressed. Before the battle even started, the two felt as if their lives weren't in their control. Zhao Feng, you're indeed in the sky-sacred Qin Palace. The Emperor of Death's voice seemed to come from every direction, and the sky seemed to turn dark as if it had fallen into a dark age. Rumble. A magnificent power of death covered heaven and earth and clashed with the couple's Qin and sword harmony for the first time. Instantly, the sky above the Qin Palace started to shake. The protective formation of the two-star sect started to shake, and the light from the formation started to dim. Hold on. Not good. If the protective array collapses, the sky-sacred Qin Palace will probably turn into ruins. At this critical moment, almost 10,000 members of the sky-sacred Qin Palace participated in the defense of the array. Amongst them, there were dozens of sovereigns at the Origin Core realm and several hundred at the True Spirit realm. Thousands of elites of the sects stepped forward and inserted their power into the defensive formation. There was strength in numbers. The protective array of a two-star clan was extremely profound and could merge true force and true yuan into it. When the protective array managed to hold on. However, the hearts of the couple from the sky-sacred Qin Palace shook. The magnificent power of the Qin and sword had been shattered by the Emperor of Death. The two's figures shook, and they almost spat out a mouthful of blood. This was under the fact that the couple specialized in teamwork and could take the damage together. On top of that, the Emperor of Death didn't even look at them. Just the magnificent power radiating from his intent of death suppressed the couple. His divine sense covered the entire sky-sacred Qin Palace, as if he was searching for something. He soon found where Zhao Feng was. The Emperor of Death revealed a weird expression. This Zhao Feng seemed to be forming the intent of a peak void god realm. His heart shook. How could he be so fast? Any Void God Realm Emperor was born with great fortune and great fortune. They had to work hard and go through ups and downs in their lives. Even though Zhao Feng was only forming the intent of an emperor and not trying to break through to the peak Void God Realm. However, once the great emperor will was formed, there would be no bottleneck for the great perfection Nihility God Realm. He, Zhao Feng. Even if your monarch will is successfully nurtured, you won't be a match for me. Besides, I won't let you have your way. The Emperor of Death's laughter was like the merciless wind of death. As soon as he finished speaking, the Emperor-level Death will rumbled through the soul-hollow sky, charging directly towards the elegant pavilion Zhao Feng was in. The Emperor intent contained the powerful intent of death. When it attacked, it could almost obliterate the soul of a normal king. At the very least, it would shatter the soul of a normal king. Dream on. The combined king's intent of the Zither Palace couple brought with it a gentle and vast power that blocked the roof of the elegant building. The combined intents of two domain-level kings slightly surpassed peak-tier kings. Moreover, the fused will was even more adept at defense. Interesting. The child demigod took a step forward, and a surge of demigod intent shot into the sky and landed on the Emperor of Death's intent. Boom! The intent of the three kings clashed with the intent of death, creating a tsunami in the soul dimension. Although this intent was just the power of mental energy, it contained the intent that its owner had comprehended, and it could shatter the physical world. Wah! The child demigod's body shook, and blood leaked out of his mouth. He was in an offensive form, so the damage he received was relatively greater. The faces of the couple went red and pale white. Their minds were injured, and this was even after they had taken on the damage together. Furthermore, the majority of the pressure was taken on by the child demigod. Such a transcendent will. Which divine lord have you reincarnated? The Emperor of Death's expression changed slightly as he stared at the child demigod. The child demigod used a profound method to dissolve the intent of death in the clash of intents just now. What was even more unbelievable was that the child demigod had used his sacred body to take on a portion of the damage. We have to stall for time and stop the Emperor of Death. If Zhao Feng successfully nurtures Emperor intent, the sky's sacred Qin Palace will have some hope. The couple looked at each other and took a deep breath. Now that things had reached this point, they didn't have the time to blame Zhao Feng for bringing danger to the sky's sacred Qin Palace. Of course. The strength of the child demigod had also exceeded their imaginations. His power made the Emperor of Death suspicious. If this child demigod really was a sacred lord, he might have a way to deal with the Emperor of Death. Sacred lord? Humph. You weren't even born when I was dominating heaven and earth. The child demigod snickered coldly as he wiped the blood from his mouth. He was also wary of the Emperor of Death's strength. If they didn't team up, even he wouldn't be able to escape. Seeing the Emperor of Death's true body, the child demigod had to admit that even if he became an emperor, he would most likely lose if he fought the Emperor of Death alone. Emperor of Death, you can't stop me from nurturing Emperor intent. However, the child demigod's heaven-sealing palms restricted the Emperor of Death's offense and slightly suppressed him in terms of intent. Arg! Some experts within the protective array were turned into a puddle of black blood by the power of death that leaked in. The Emperor of Death quickly waved the scythe of death and unleashed an attack that covered several hundred miles. The couple from the sky's sacred Qin Palace, the child demigod, Zhao Feng, and the entire sky's sacred Qin Palace were attacked. It could be said that he had easily suppressed an entire two-star sect by himself, and he even had experts like Zhao Feng and the child demigod on top of that. From the looks of it, the couple from the sky's sacred Qin Palace and the child demigod wouldn't be able to last more than a few breaths. An aura of death covered everything within several thousand miles, as if it was hell on earth. Disciples of the sky's sacred Qin Palace were dying every second. I can't let the sky's sacred Qin palace bear this calamity. Zhao Feng slowly stood up. Suddenly, his purple hair blew in the wind as his left eye locked onto the Emperor of Death like a ball of purple illusion god lightning. Void space eye slash. A weird ripple of eye bloodline power covered the place where the Emperor of Death was standing. Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye locked onto the Emperor of Death. Heaven sealing 18 palms. The child demigod cooperated very well and restricted the Emperor of Death. Child's play. The Emperor of Death stood on the spot and didn't move, allowing the scarlet blade to slice through his body. Shu the Emperor of Death stood motionlessly on the spot. He was like a statue of death that stood proudly throughout the ages. That's the immortal death body. His body is like a living corpse. In theory, he doesn't have any weak points, not even his organs. The child demigod took in a cold breath. The immortal death body was an undying body. Although it didn't focus on physical strength, its survivability was extremely strong. Simply put, the Emperor of Death was a powerful zombie with an undying body. The void space eye slash is countered. Zhao Feng wasn't surprised. He had heard a lot about the Emperor of Death from Duan Muqing. Normal enemies with an undying body could be targeted at the soul if their physical body was too strong. However, the problem was that, the Emperor of Death's mastery of the soul was one of the top existences in the Tsang Ocean, and his eyes of death were present. No wonder the Emperor of Death was able to stand at the peak of emperors. Ha ha ha. I'll kill you guys first. The Emperor of Death's laughter was chilling as it echoed through the sky. After successfully interrupting Zhao Feng's emperor intent, his attention turned to the couple and the child demigod. He would first kill these flies and then deal with Zhao Feng in order to execute his eye-stealing plan. Chapter 740. Not good. The Zither Palace couple cried out involuntarily. The death scythe slashed through their spatial domains and defensive layers. The two were pushed back 100 yards and spat out mouthfuls of blood as their faces went pale white. This was only the child demigod using the sky sealing 18 palms to weaken the Emperor of Death's attack by 30% and greatly limit his speed. If it wasn't for that, the couple would have been killed by the scythe of death already. Shwa. A deathly cold sickle shadow slashed in front of the two people whose defenses had been broken. The couple were filled with despair. At least one of them was going to die. Dai Lian, see you in the next life. The scholarly middle-aged man from the Zither Palace couple let out a roar and barely managed to move his body, using his body to block the scythe of death. If he blocked this attack with his king body, he would be able to save the palace master's life. After doing this, the scholarly middle-aged man closed his eyes. Brother Xing. The palace master screamed, but there was nothing she could do. At this moment in time, Zhao Feng and the child demigod were quite a distance away, so it would be very difficult for them to make it in time. Death was already decided. A mocking smile appeared on the Emperor of Death's face. However, the next instant, the situation changed. Spatial movement. A wisp of eye bloodline power appeared in front of the scholarly middle-aged man. Shwa. The part of the scythe of death that hit the scholarly middle-aged man suddenly disappeared. The situation, it was as if someone had taken a bite out of the middle of a crescent moon. The two ends of the scythe of death split into two and brushed past the scholarly middle-aged man's head and feet. He's not dead. The scholarly middle-aged man paused as cold sweat covered his body. He had just escaped from the gates of hell. Spatial movement, this kind of spatial movement. The Emperor of Death paused. As if he had sensed something, his expression changed dramatically. Shwa. The part of the scythe of death that had disappeared happened to pass through the Emperor of Death's head, causing blood to appear. Ridiculous. The Emperor of Death murmured. Although the chilling edge of death wasn't able to do much damage to his immortal death body, however, being slapped in the face by his own death's secret technique was a humiliation that had never happened in the past thousands of years. Death Frost. The Emperor of Death's expression darkened. At the same time, he took the blow head-on, and with a point of his finger, a black beam of frost shot out. Wherever it passed, the void froze. Be careful. The Zither Palace couple had just escaped danger when they felt a deadly chill. Poof! The scholarly middle-aged man was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. His defensive layer had just formed when it was pierced through by the black deathly frost, and his body stiffened. All of a sudden, a layer of cold black frost spread across the scholarly middle-aged man's body. The cold, fiendish aura of death permeated his entire body. Hiss! Not only was the scholarly middle-aged man frozen and unable to move, but his body and soul were also corroded by the cold power of death. His life essence was rapidly flowing away. Brother Xing. The palace master of the Zither Palace barely managed to dispel a few traces of the frost. A white flame appeared on her palm and attached to the scholarly man's back, dispelling the frost. On the other hand, a playful smile appeared on the Emperor of Death's face. Zhao Feng's god's spiritual eye scanned over the scholarly middle-aged man, and his expression changed dramatically. Stop. Arg! The scholarly middle-aged man screamed as the power of death contained within the frost started to boil and cover his body. That situation was like a bottle of frozen venom that had just entered the body. Perhaps it was just cold. However, if one melted it, the venom would be completely released. The Emperor of Death's frost of death contained the deadly power of death, which was the lethal poison formed from ice. In the blink of an eye, the scholarly middle-aged man's body started to melt, and he turned into a puddle of black blood. Brother Xing, it's all my fault. The palace master's heart was dripping blood from the pain. The child demigod and Zhao Feng's hearts dropped. The death frost could freeze the target, and if the target was melted by flames, the power of death within would be released. However, if it wasn't dissolved, the power of death within the death frost would continue to corrode the target's life force. In reality, the scholarly middle-aged man was fated to die no matter if the palace master tried to save him or not. It was only a matter of time before he died. Don't be sad, I'll send you to see him. The Emperor of Death smiled as a second beam of cold light shot toward the palace master of the Qin Palace. Master! Li Shui exclaimed from within the protective array. If there was no exception, the palace master would die for sure. She wouldn't be able to block the Emperor of Death's technique by herself, even after being weakened by the child demigod. At this moment of life and death, lightning wings flying technique. A bolt of lightning surrounded by scarlet lightning appeared in front of the palace master. You! The palace master of the Qin Palace revealed a look of shock and bewilderment. She only felt that a purple-haired young man had used his body to block the frost of death attack for her. It was as if her husband had used his life to save hers. The youth was obviously Zhao Feng. See! A surge of extreme coldness and the aura of the 10,000 ancient races appeared around Zhao Feng. The coldness and aura made the palace master's body feel pressured. When a layer of beautiful ice blue scales appeared on Zhao Feng's skin, and the coldness of the death frost was instantly melted when it got close. Pang! The remaining pure power of death landed on Zhao Feng's body and started to freeze, reducing its power by 40 to 50%. It obviously couldn't threaten him, who had the mystic ice-scaled race's bloodline. 10,000 ancient races bloodline. The Emperor of Death murmured as his eyes twinkled. Even if the 10,000 ancient races bloodline was ranked in the hundreds or thousands, it was still a legendary bloodline in the fan universe. Furthermore, Zhao Feng's bloodline came from the mystic ice-scaled race, which was ranked 89th. A bloodline that specialized in defensive ice power was the perfect counter to the Emperor of Death's Frost of Death, and other Yin-type secret arts of death would be greatly weakened. Palace Master, You stay here and protect the sky's sacred palace. I will lure the Emperor of Death away. Zhao Feng's voice sounded in the palace master's mind. He felt slightly guilty. He was the one who lured the Emperor of Death here. It could be said that he was the one who brought disaster to the sky's sacred palace and killed the palace master's husband. As soon as he finished speaking, a surge of magnificent power that was comparable to an emperor enveloped the palace master and sent her into the protective array. You be careful. The palace master knew that she would only drag Zhao Feng down. Looks like it'll be very hard to stop Zhao Feng from forming emperor intent. The Emperor of Death murmured, but he didn't attack immediately. His focus was on Zhao Feng. The palace master was just a slightly bigger ant in the Emperor of Death's eyes. Scarlet Destruction Eye Flame. The instant Zhao Feng's body froze, a scarlet gold light appeared in his left eye. Whoosh! A half-transparent scarlet-colored lightning fire landed on the Emperor of Death's body and roared through the physical and mental energy dimensions. Even the Emperor of Death's heart jumped as he felt an uneasy aura. Looking closely, the Scarlet Destruction Eye Flame had a faint golden luster on its surface. It could even be called a higher-level Scarlet Gold Eye Flame. This eye flame contained the essence of the Scarlet Destruction True Flame, and it was comparable to the Golden Wind Lightning. The power of the God Tribulation Lightning contained in Zhao Feng's soul was dozens of times stronger than when he was at the pirate's sacred land. With Zhao Feng's emperor-level soul, the power of this eye bloodline flame that was close to the scarlet gold grade was enough to make normal emperors change their expressions. Boom! The Emperor of Death's figure shook slightly as he felt as if his body was being bombarded by 10,000 lightning-colored flames. The intent of destruction and God Tribulation Lightning even injured his immortal death body. Even his eyes of death were slightly affected by the attack. If it was a normal emperor, they would probably be at a disadvantage. Apart from the aura of destruction, the Scarlet Destruction Wind Lightning also contains the power of God Tribulation Lightning. Could it be? The Emperor of Death's heart shook. The Scarlet Destruction Eye Flame was indeed worthy of being Zhao Feng's strongest eye bloodline technique. After merging the power of God Tribulation Lightning into it, it was like adding wings to a tiger. Attack together. The scarlet-colored wings behind Zhao Feng's back summoned a storm of scarlet lightning as he charged toward the Emperor of Death. As soon as he said that, the child demigod below was like a golden cannonball, and his physical body seemed to materialize as it formed a golden fist that contained a dominating intent. Scarlet Destruction Exploding Fist. Zhao Feng and the child demigod's attacks arrived at the same time. Zhao Feng was the main attacker. The Scarlet Destruction Exploding Fist unleashed the fire destruction attribute of the Scarlet Destruction Wind Lightning to its extreme. On top of that, this simple punch of his was infused with the three domains. The power of the Illusion Maze Domain, Mystic Ice Domain, and Wind Lightning Domain all gathered into one punch. On the other hand, the child demigod used his sacred body and fist techniques to suppress the Emperor of Death's physical body and intent. In reality, his existence restricted the Emperor of Death's strength, making it hard for the latter to face Zhao Feng's attacks head-on. 3 spatial domains? What? Golden Kun, sacred body. What's the relationship between the child demigod and Kun Yun? The Emperor of Death was stunned. The combined attacks of Zhao Feng and the child demigod landed on the Emperor of Death. The Emperor of Death's body became heavy, but he didn't panic. Even though the combined attacks of Zhao Feng and the child demigod were enough to threaten many emperors, the Emperor of Death didn't panic. Death Force Field. The air around the Emperor of Death turned into a terrifying pitch-black force field. The power of death spun like ink within the pitch-black force field, and all life force within its range was sucked away, including the Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi. Boom! The death force field absorbed as much of Zhao Feng's and Lu Yu's peerless attacks, and with a twist, it created a terrifying backlash. Retreat. Both of them felt a sense of danger. The death force field could absorb attacks from the outside world and counterattack to a certain degree. Zhao Feng's expression changed dramatically, and his heart started to jump. He circulated his mental energy to the maximum, and his scarlet destruction lightning wings fluttered rapidly. Shwa! An intent that could shake heaven and earth pushed Xiao Feng and the child demigod back even faster, dodging most of the power of the death force field. Pang! 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 Xiao Feng's heart rate sped up. That instant just now was too dangerous. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. His spirit and willpower were crystal clear, perfect, and transcendent. Between his thoughts, the many profound truths of heaven and earth in the space around him revolved around him. Boom! A brand new emperor intent soared into the sky. With Xiao Feng at the center, lightning boomed, and clouds flashed in the air. It was a grand and beautiful sight. Emperor intent. Chapter 741. Emperor Intent. Xiao Feng stood where he was, and his purple hair started to move in a weird rhythm. Wind blew above his head, and arcs of lightning flashed in every direction. A layer of crystal appeared in his purple soul sea, and his mental energy intent was like a crystal that had been polished to perfection. His mental energy aura seemed to merge with heaven and earth, and the various intents of heaven and earth appeared several times clearer than before. This was the perfection of the soul intent at the peak of the void god realm. If the soul of a normal king was like a pebble, then the soul of an emperor was like a crystal agate. The difference between the quantity of the soul wasn't like the difference between heaven and earth, but in terms of quality, it was huge. At this moment in time, the new emperor's magnificent power and the vast aura affected everything within 10,000 miles. Most of the clouds of death above the sky-sacred Qin palace dissipated. Emperor intent. Within the protective array, the palace master, Li Shui, and company looked at Xiao Feng with joy and respect. If Xiao Feng could comprehend the intent of a peak void god realm expert, then he wouldn't have any bottlenecks when he became an emperor. As long as he had enough time, 10 years at most, 3 to 5 years at the very least, Xiao Feng would become the new emperor of the Tsang Ocean. One had to know that the entire Tsang Ocean hadn't given birth to a new emperor in the past few hundred years. The birth of any emperor would affect the situation of an area. As expected, I can't stop it. The Emperor of Death's calm expression became solemn for the first time. This was because the magnificent power that Xiao Feng displayed was already close to that of an emperor. It could be said that before Xiao Feng even appeared, 95% of the emperor intent had been formed. If they fought, Xiao Feng could form emperor intent at any moment. The pursuit of death. It's still unknown who will win. Xiao Feng's eyes were crystal clear and filled with confidence and battle intent. As soon as he finished speaking, he made a grabbing motion with one hand, and a burning cloud of crimson destruction emanated layers of golden ripples that enveloped a part of the sky. Whoosh! A flaming claw of wind and lightning appeared within the crimson mist and slammed toward the Emperor of Death with a force that could cover the sky. The Emperor of Death snickered coldly as the pitch-black death force field around him twisted and formed a ripple of death that turned everything in its path into dust. Rumble. A few mountains nearby instantly turned into ashes that filled the sky, as if they had melted into thin air. Peng peng. The scarlet-red claw of wind lightning was quickly worn down by the ripples of death. When it got close to the Emperor of Death, it only had 40% of its power left. Immediately after. As the Emperor of Death circulated his intent, a pitch-black dimension of death stacked on top of the heavens and earth. Ka-cha! Xiao Feng's martial monarch force was instantly devoured. That's the realm of death, a simple small world, the child demigod exclaimed. Xiao Feng also felt an unparalleled power of a small world. It was countless times stronger than an ordinary space domain. Scarlet destruction exploding fist. Xiao Feng punched out, and his 3 spatial domains clashed head-on with the Emperor of Death's little world. The intent of an emperor made Xiao Feng's scarlet destruction wind lightning's power rise by several levels. The improvement of his soul made the three spatial domains become more corporeal. The power of the three domains, which represented the Tao of the soul, bloodline, and cultivation technique, was concentrated in the scarlet destruction wind lightning fist, which was shining with a golden luster. Along with the illusion city bewildering shadow and the profound ice storm, they all exploded at one point. Bam! The child demigod was like a golden Buddha as he used the heaven-sealing 18 palms. His sacred body crushed mountains and rivers as he restricted the Emperor of Death. The combination of the two had reached a whole new level, and it was enough to force back normal emperors. Boom! Boom! The Emperor of Death pointed out with his finger, and the power of his little world of death turned into a dark dimension that devoured all power. Xiao Feng and the child demigod's attacks were like stones sinking into the ocean when they got close. With a weird sizzling sound, the Emperor of Death pushed the power of his little world of death toward Xiao Feng and the child demigod, causing the dimension to tremble. Xiao Feng and the child demigod were suppressed by the power of the little world, and a coldness spread through their bodies. Not good. The two shivered. They felt like the small world of death was like a huge abyss, emitting a terrifying suction force. In the void, an endless amount of life essence was being pulled and devoured. Xiao Feng and the child demigod both felt as if their life force was being sucked away. Arg! Inside the protective array of the sky's sacred Qin Palace, many members of the Qin Palace instantly turned into skeletons. Lightning wings flying technique. A pair of large wings of wind and lightning extended from Xiao Feng's back. One could clearly see the bones and feathers on them, as if they were the wings of an ancient lightning bird. Shua! Xiao Feng took the child demigod and flew several hundred yards away in the blink of an eye. If it weren't for the fact that he had formed emperor intent, Xiao Feng wouldn't have been able to fly so far. Where do you think you're going? The Emperor of Death's figure was like the shadow of the god of death as he closed in on Xiao Feng and the child demigod. Whoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, the three of them had flown into the outer realm and left the inner realm. The sky's sacred Qin Palace's people only saw two motes of light quickly merging into the universe in the sky and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Only the palace master of the Zither Palace could see the battle between the three with her divine sense. One of the scarlet-red lights was Xiao Feng and the child demigod. The Emperor of Death's speed is so fast. Xiao Feng realized that the Emperor of Death was easily catching up to him. One had to know that Xiao Feng's current speed was even slightly faster than some Void God Realm emperors. The increase in his intent allowed Xiao Feng to comprehend the core of the wings of wind and lightning. Master, we can't beat the Emperor of Death right now. The child demigod said solemnly. Xiao Feng's eyes twinkled, but he didn't deny it. The Emperor of Death easily suppressed the entire sky sacred Qin Palace in the first exchange. The Emperor of Death had reached the peak of emperors in every aspect. At the very least, Xiao Feng still couldn't find a way to threaten the Emperor of Death's immortal death body. Just from this alone, the Emperor of Death was undefeatable. Furthermore, Xiao Feng and the child demigod wouldn't be able to break through the Emperor of Death's little world in a short amount of time. The Emperor of Death's foundation is so strong. I'll definitely lose if we fight for a long time. Xiao Feng made his decision. Thinking up to there, the wings on his back started to flap even faster. Shua! Under Xiao Feng's command, the child demigod entered the ancient metal ring. The next instant, a shocking scene appeared. Lightning wing spatial flash. The wings of wind lightning behind Xiao Feng's back released a blinding light, and his speed reached the maximum as he turned into a streak of lightning that merged into the air. Shua! The Emperor of Death only saw a streak of lightning that disappeared. Xiao Feng was nowhere to be seen within a few thousand miles. Lightning wing spatial flash. That's the highest level of the wind lightning inheritance. The Emperor of Death was slightly dazed. The lightning wings secret technique that Zhao Feng used was the most ideal level of the wings of wind and lightning wings spatial flash. This secret skill was based on the thunder wings wind flash, and then merged with the thunder wings flying technique, allowing the user to fly through the air at extreme speed. In the blink of an eye, Zhao Feng appeared a few thousand miles away. His speed was enough to leave many emperors in the dust. The name of the wind lightning inheritance as the fastest emperor wasn't just for show. Back then, the wind lightning emperor had even managed to escape from a sacred lord. One spatial flash can travel several thousand miles. This is the limitless ocean, so there's more than 10 times the normal speed. This isn't enough. Zhao Feng wasn't very satisfied. If this spatial flash was in the zone, it would only be able to travel several hundred miles. At his peak, the wind lightning emperor could easily spatial flash more than 1,000 miles in the zone. As expected, this speed wasn't enough to shake off the Emperor of Death. Death instant shadow. The Emperor of Death followed like a shadow. One could only see a dark streak of light in the limitless ocean. It was also a powerful spatial technique. In the blink of an eye, the Emperor of Death was quickly approaching. Lightning wings spatial flash. The wings of lightning behind Zhao Feng's back once again released a bright light, and he turned into a small arc of lightning that merged into the air and flew away. In the next instant, Zhao Feng traveled another few thousand miles. This time, he was more than 1,000 miles further than before. After becoming an emperor, Zhao Feng's understanding of space had increased, and he could now use the lightning wing spatial flash as he pleased. The extreme speed of the intent of wind lightning combined with the speed of flying gave him the glory of being the fastest emperor. Half the time it took to make tea later, Zhao Feng's lightning wing spatial flash became more proficient, and it used less energy while increasing his speed. At the end, every time Zhao Feng used the spatial flash, he could travel 7,000 to 8,000 miles. Of course, there was still a gap between this and the wind lightning emperor at his peak. However, even then, Zhao Feng's lightning wing spatial flash had reached the peak speed of anyone below the Sacred Lord realm. An hour later, the distance between Zhao Feng and the Emperor of Death was increasing. Lightning wing spatial flash. The fastest speed Emperor has ever reached. The Emperor of Death's eyebrows furrowed as he felt helpless. He had heard of the wind lightning Emperor before. He had once used his speed to escape from a sacred lord. At the end, the Emperor of Death's divine sense completely lost track of Zhao Feng. He could only use the wisp of aura left in the air to chase after Zhao Feng. Luckily, Zhao Feng wasn't able to create a fake aura from the lightning wing spatial flash. The thunder wing space flash was accompanied by the condensed power of wind and thunder. It had a profound concept and a vast momentum. Moreover, it was accompanied by spatial fluctuations. This was something that Zhao Feng felt helpless about. He had to create enough distance before using the basic version of the lightning wings wind flash. Only then would he be able to use a fake aura to lure the Emperor of Death away. However, the problem was, Zhao Feng's speed didn't have an overwhelming advantage. He was only slightly faster than the Emperor of Death. The Emperor of Death had an ocean of true yuan and could use a large amount of energy to chase after Zhao Feng with the death instant shadow. Within the limitless ocean. The two extreme speeds and auras caused some of the scattered experts from the outer realms to feel a suffocating sense of fear. 5 or 6 days later, Zhao Feng finally escaped from the Emperor of Death and entered a new island zone. Whoosh! A streak of lightning descended like a resplendent meteor into an island region similar to the Azure Flower continent. Zhao Feng let out a long breath. His face was pale white, and his body started to shake. He sat down and took out a fruit from the ancient dream realm and ate it. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.